but we was going to play it again. Why? Because we are going into our the Temple of Hip Hop lesson. We're getting ready to deal with the 17th overstanding, and so we was going to play what is a short film on how the Temple of Hip Hop came to be, what is its point, this, that, and the other, so on, some highlights, and then I would have started this read. As you know, we go at a moderate speed with our reads through these overstandings, because as we get to the end of the Gospel of Hip Hop, as we get to the end of the book itself, you should be experiencing heightened levels of health, love, awareness, and wealth. And I say that because we're going to read about this as well. That through the read, your mind and your character, your soul even, should have matured, should be maturing. You should not be the same person you was 2 years ago. You shouldn't be the same person you was 1 year ago. And not that the person you was somehow wrong or something wild, whatever. Not that. But from a point of view of, I didn't know, now I know. That kind of maturity. I didn't understand, now I understand. That's the process by which we are dealing with here at the Temple of Hip Hop, and for those who have been reading with us for the last 2 years. So we are up to our 17th overstanding, the Temple of Hip Hop. I do have some announcements to make, though, just before we get into our read, and let me just run through them real quickly. With the Hip Hop 50 Years exhibition, Hip Hop 50 Years exhibition. Everyone who has registered for that, thank you for that, and for your registration. We don't have any information yet. You're one of the first. You're among the first people to register to RSVP to attend the Hip Hop 50 Years exhibition at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue in the Bronx. Let me get my flyer. Actually, it's actually there in those. In the pants there, thing on top of those. Yeah. Let me just grab that real quick so I could just do this correctly. I always hold up the flyer. Oh, I'm blocking the thing. Hold up the flyer. Okay. So it's the 1520 Sedgwick Avenue in the Bronx, August 11, 2023. And the what is it called? Email address to RSVP is hiphop50years@gmail.com. That is HIPHOP, the number 50, YEARS @gmail.com. And there's no new updates there. We're very early. We're still getting started. I'm taking meetings with artists, really, and trying to figure out, whose hand is the dopest. That's really what we're doing with that. Where's my notes? Oh, here we go. And that's really what we're doing with that. So just no real updates, but just we're moving forward with that. The Hip Hop Alliance. The Hip Hop Alliance is getting its internal structure together. We've been taking several meetings. Curtis Blow, Chuck D, myself, Tara Martin, a couple other people as well, including G. Simone, on the teaching them really about the contracts and stuff like that. And we had a conversation with another gentleman who's, claimed to did the same kind of work, but actually, as we started to get into the question, we realized that it wasn't as live as we thought. But it's just making me think about that now. But I say that because the Hip Hop Alliance basically has a lot of little things going on. those that are interested in joining our union as an artist and also as a movement to get these corporations off our back in terms of just exploiting the culture itself with no real legal defense, no cultural response, no protection for workers, no protection for those that work within hip hop or who works within hip hop's culture. We have no 401k, we have no pension or uh, retirement that we can pay into or anything. We pretty much, most artists wise, pretty much have to work until they die. And that's pretty much it. But you do get things like publishing and royalties, and hopefully, if your catalog stays active, you can get checks without doing any physical work. But that's far and few, and you have to really be a platinum selling huge artist to actually live off of the residuals of your art. Everyone else pretty much does their art because either they like it or is a part of hip hop's culture in that way. You do the art because it's part of you. You do art. Sure, you want to be successful at your art. You want the biggest success you can get. But if you, even when you don't have success, you find yourself in that MC cipher. You find yourself going to that graffiti art gallery show. You find yourself creating your own art. You find yourself DJing, listening out for the latest beats. You're producing. This is part of you. Well, for those that are part of hip hop's culture like that, the concept of a union is what we need. Is what we need. And so, I was gonna say human education against lies. We was been talking about this union since that as well. But the Hip Hop Alliance remedies that, and it's going to take a minute. It's going to take a minute to actually build that. So the minute has started, and minutes turn into hours, and hours into days, and so we've started, and that's human. That's a Hip Hop Alliance. I have a note here. Our 501c6 status. We're filing that. We have to do other paper first to establish our internal structure, and then that paperwork goes to the government for a 501c6 status. Well, actually, it goes to the IRS for that, but there's other government agencies like the AFL-CIO that also sanction you to be a legitimate union. Actually, the National Labor Board actually does that. Moving on, Grandmaster Flash, KRS-ONE project, 50 years in celebration of hip hop's 50 years. Grandmaster Flash and KRS-ONE is teaming up to do this project. It's not really, at least as it flowers up, I don't know if it's a KRS-ONE project in that sense. There's a whole host of people on the project and so on, but I'm the lead MC. KRS and Flash, we got together and talked it up actually together in that sense. But Flash knows a lot of people and got a lot of ideas. So we're going to see how the album flowers up like that. Keep you abreast, keep you posted. We've been filming stuff too in the studio, working as well. Maybe we'll get that up. You can see some of that as well later on. But that's Grandmaster Flash, KRS-ONE, coming in 2023. November this year, 2022, is Hip Hop History Month. Hip Hop History Month, and just doubling back on the Hip Hop Alliance. During Hip Hop History Month, we're going to be doing an online conference for the membership of the Hip Hop Alliance. So the Hip Hop Alliance has 77,000 members signed up at its website. So for those members, we're going to be doing an online conference, and that conference will include lectures, how to get answering the artistic questions. How do you start your career? Where should you be going and looking? Connections to these places as well. The beauty about online is that as you're watching this, you could actually go to ASCAP or BMI. You could actually go to some other agency, especially the booking agencies, and see what they're doing and see how you can become part of that as well. So it's a conference that kind of boosts the value of artists, and it's the first annual Hip Hop Alliance conference. So that's in November coming up this year. More on that later. But it's an online conference. You go on, you'll see a lot of lectures, maybe even a few performances. But for certain, you'll see lectures on how to get your career off the ground, how to also maintain your career, and also, most importantly, the longevity. Where's the money at? Where's the real money at? And not in a greedy way, not in that way, but in a surviving way, in a survival way. You are hip hop. Where are the resources to sustain you as that? We talk about that within the conference. We talk about that here at the Temple of Hip Hop. I'll get into that a little later on. It's not our main discussion in this forum, but every now and then we do dash off and talk about resources. Where are our real resources? Money being one of them. Like, for instance, the tour that's getting ready to come up. Let me talk about that as well. I'll get to that. So November, we're going to have our first annual Hip Hop Alliance conference. And that's an online conference for members of the Hip Hop Alliance. Now, I will be broadcasting from London, England during that time. As you guys know, toward the mid-end of October, I jump on a ship and I'm out of here. I get over to England, when I step down into England, the party starts. And I'm moving around. So, and I'm gonna run that down to you right now. But so I'll be broadcasting from London, England. We have not set a date, official date on that yet, where that Hip Hop Alliance conference is going to go down. It may be November 20th, and I'll show you that to you later on, but it may be November 20th. That's when that's going down in November. This is all during Hip Hop History Month. Hip Hop History Month for the Temple of Hip Hop. I'll be celebrating that over in England as well. There'll be a series of lectures. I'm going to be putting a series of lectures for Temple members, for us, regarding history. I'll be taking studies from another book that I wrote called Black Oustery, a take on Black history, but it's a philosophical look at Black and history. But for our read, we'll be looking at the history part more than the Black part. The book is about Black history and African Americans, or really any scholar interested in Black history, looking at it from a philosophical point of view, seeing the holes in it and seeing the benefits, the possibilities of it. It's a whole book on that, getting ready to come for February 2023. But I'm going to begin reading portions of that. And that's where the history lesson comes in. It's a big piece on history within that book and within the Gospel of Hip Hop. We'll get to the part where it's called super historical hip hop. We're going to start talking about history, the documentation of history, the importance of history, the unimportance of history, the history of history. We're going to be getting into that. So this Hip Hop History Month, the Temple of Hip Hop, is really going to turn the volume up on its teaching of history. Not any particular history, like hip hop history, Black history, Native American history, not any specifically, but the concept of history itself, its pros and cons. We're going to be discussing that all through November on calls like this and in produced pieces. In addition to that, in England, I'm going to be teaching at an institution. It's actually it's an institution that this nickname BIMM, B-I-M-M, but that stands for the British and Irish modern music, British and Irish modern music, and probably Academy or something like that. But that's what they focus on, British and Irish modern music. But it's branched out to be more like even almost like a hip hop school. Whenever they get a chance to have teachers come through and talk on a variety of music themes. But I've been frequenting the school over the past 10 years, maybe, to say last 10 years. Whenever I drop in England or Ireland, I take a BIM lecture, and they're always ready to receive me. So when I get over there, I'm going to turn the volume up on the BIM lectures. They have, like I said, they have 8 locations. I'm not doing all 8 locations. I'll probably do like 3 or 4 of them in the London area, like that, and talk about history. Not so much hip hop's history, but hip hop's take on history as a discipline, as a philosophy. We're going to look at history itself. So I'm turning the volume up on that at these BIM lectures that I'll be doing overseas. You guys are invited as well. I'll get to that in a minute as well. Those that want to attend some of those lectures, they are going to be amazing lectures. Not just me spitting the raw myself, but other historians will be there as well. We'll be flanked by scholars. You don't want to miss this. But it'll also be within our archives, and you won't miss this. You'll just have to wait to see it. But if you want to get it fresh while it's going down, you're going to have to take a flight to London, England, and party with us. So, okay, yeah, let me hit you with this. So Hip Hop History Month. So the Temple of Hip Hop. Let me focus on this. Temple of Hip Hop, during Hip Hop History Month, I'll be doing BIM lectures as KRS-ONE in England. The Temple of Hip Hop will be producing pieces on hip hop's philosophical take on history itself. Some of these will be online, we'll be putting them up like videos. Others will be private for us, for private discussion for Temple members themselves. On the ground in Liverpool, this is still November, during November, we're going to do a hip hop exhibit the 14th, either the 14th or 15th, or the 14th and 15th, based on how it goes, in Liverpool, England. We're trying to set this up right now. And I only say trying because we don't know. I'd like it to be 2 days, 14th and 15th. But I am coming off of tour. It's in between these tour dates as well. Got some time. We organized it right there. Liverpool's a major place for KRS-ONE. I've done lectures there as well. The city councilwoman is a friend as well. The International Slavery Museum is there as well, and their staff are friends as well. They may want to hear from KR when I get there as well. I've done shows there, amazing shows there. Liverpool, and then Liverpool itself is an important place in British and African history. Not just the slave trade part of it, but the trade part of it. A lot of intellectual things going on there too. Kings and queens from Africa sending their students over to Liverpool, not as slaves, as dignitaries and so on. Complicated history. But nonetheless, Liverpool has a long history, and we're going to be there, concert and lecture. But I have 2 days there to organize this hip hop exhibit. Now, keep in mind, about 4 years ago, maybe 5 now, about 4 or 5 years ago, I had did a lecture in Liverpool where we organized hip hop on the ground in Liverpool. We went to the university. We were organizing people to create a hip hop exhibit. That was about 5 years ago. It was tough because people's attitudes, People couldn't afford to keep doing this. Other people's schedules got in the way. Not even in the way, you got other things to do with your life. I was only there for what, a month. I think I was there like a month and a half, 2 months, trying to galvanize a hip hop exhibit. We got a lot of work done, and we have some allies there as well. But um, it didn't materialize. The exhibit never materialized there. I'm coming back 5 years later to now announce the exhibit. I have something to show. I have pieces. I have the information now. We will produce the exhibit there in England, in Liverpool, there, fulfill that vision as well, which will also teach Liverpool about perseverance and about the vision as well. And there's a whole bunch going on there, because you can't imagine what we did before. Matter of fact, we filmed it all. So maybe we'll put together a quick film and show you what happened last time we were there. It was a great, great, great moment. But we didn't reach the heights that we needed to reach because of the immaturity of a lot of the people. They knew themselves. They had to rise in so many different levels to even do this. So the teacher is returning to Liverpool to get that off. So we have that. We're going to put that exhibit together the 14th and 15th, or the 14th or 15th, 2022 in Liverpool, England. Now, November 20th, it's actually a 3-day event, November 20th, 21st, and 22nd. Okay, this is where we, again, are celebrating Temple of Hip Hop. We are celebrating Hip Hop History Month here as well in November. As you can see, London's going to be live. London's going to be live. Really, England's going to be live. But as far as hip hop is concerned, we're hitting the ground exploding and giving the hip hop community life in Britain. November 20th, 21st, and 22nd. So November 20th is a Sunday. We're going to have a special temple meeting, special temple call right there Sunday, probably flanked with a dinner afterwards. You may want to be there. We're discussing history. So it's going to be a lecture on history, on hip hop's history. Again, our takes on history, this kind of thing. So November 20th, somewhere in England, we'll be discussing hip hop's history and history itself. I actually may fly, if I can get Kaz or somebody, maybe even Flash, to come out as our keynote speaker and do something special on that Sunday. But Sunday, the 20th, is a special lecture. If you're flying out, you want to get in on Saturday and then wake up Sunday, and we'll probably take a luncheon, which will lead into the lecture itself, which will then end with the dinner, some sort of dinner. That's on the 20th. Then Monday, the next day, November 21st, we have Simone's release party. Yes, Simone is releasing her album. She's going to release it in London. Or at least the first release of it is going to be in London, November 21st. The working title right now is Such a Feeling, is the name of the album, Such a Feeling by G. Simone. And of course, the album is Blazed. You will hear it, no doubt. Video's getting shot right now as we speak. You've already seen the video for Hallelujah. So that's November 21st, Simone album release. Just so you know, the 20th, I can also, on that day, have the Hip Hop Alliance online conference that day as well. Keep in mind that could flank our evening or our mourning based on the times of the countries that we need to have involved in this international discussion. So that could also happen November 20th. You could actually be there live for the Hip Hop Alliance Union meeting happening sometime that day, the 20th. But the temple will still have its special lecture on history and on hip hop's history on November 20th. Monday, November 21st, Simone's album release. We just basically released the album that day. It'd be phenomenal. And that's it. The album is called Such a Feeling. And it gets released on November 21st. Tuesday, November 22nd, is the big concert. We waited to this time to do the biggest concert there. And I don't even have the name. The Electric. I get the Forum and the Electric Factory and all these venues mixed up. But in London, we have a pretty big concert there. And I'm gonna keep it on wraps anyway because we're still doing contracts and things could change. But November 22nd for certain, we're gonna do a huge concert in London in commemoration of Hip Hop History Month. In commemoration of Hip Hop History Month, we may actually have our exhibit up during that time, like wherever the venue is. The exhibit will also be up. We may actually call for volunteers to come through. If you're in the UK listening to me right now, you may want to sign up. You may want to make yourself known for these 3 days. We could definitely use the help. We need cars, even living arrangements, quarters for other temple members coming from America. Do we have lodging? Somebody cooking? Get some salmon going, something, okay? And anybody cooking out there. These things cut down on costs considerably when people work together and cooperate with one another. And of course, this is what the Temple of Hip Hop is all about. So as a team effort, we could lessen the burden on all of us by working together. So those that want to come out and actually do that, there's the special 3 days: Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Sunday is the special lecture, the hip hop, as well as the special lecture on history, as well as possibly the Hip Hop Alliance conference, online conference. That day, we could use some help on that, especially tech help. Monday, November 21st, Simone releases her album on that day as well. There'll be a location for that as well. Might want to stop through. Tuesday, November 22nd, concert commemorating Hip Hop History Month. I'm going to break London down. And so that's the 3 days there. Now you could see that if you really want to stretch it out and get your wallet out, get your purse out, get your credit card out, hip hop, you can come in on the 13th if you have the time, November 13th. So you could take in the hip hop exhibit 14th and 15th, even help out with that too. Those that want to volunteer, you might want to help out with putting that together, maintaining it, breaking it down, this kind of thing. You may want to come in on the 13th, hip hop exhibit for the 14th, 15th, linger, stay around until November 20th. Of course, I have concerts all through that as well. If you want to come and help out on the concert as well, that's there as well. Got to get organized, but these opportunities are available. November 20th, like I said, the lecture and online conference. The 21st, Simone's album release. The 22nd, concert in London. And then you're out probably the 24th or 25th. I think that's Thanksgiving. I think, is that the 25th is Thanksgiving, right? Should I say Thanksgiving? Yeah, I think it is. 24th, 25th. 24th, 25th. You should be back for Thanksgiving. And that would be it. You leave like the 13th to the 25th. That's almost 12 days. A lot of days out there, but fun-filled work days, I tell you that. And for those that are studying on another level, those that want to study a whole host of knowledge is going down during this time, as well as the concerts and all that comes with that. But we'll be getting down with the academics straight up with this within this time schedule. So that's why I also mention it. Those that want to come spend the money, or come and volunteer as well, because we're going to open a budget for our volunteers as well. Bring a few people across that are disciplined, have been on this call, have the right character. Son One will be calling you about that as well. Some of you already in touch with G. Simone. You'll be having those conversations as well. And we haven't officially announced anything yet, but you know what it is. If you can make it, if you can volunteer, it is what it is. It's a knowledge-based situation. It's an apprenticeship. For those that are studying hip hop on a serious level, this is crazy, and you might not want to miss it. But it is expensive. Even if we pay for your way to be there and even house you while you're there, it's still expensive for a human being to be in another country, surviving, living every day. But that's also part of the hip hop lessons that we teach here at the Temple of Hip Hop. How do you, as a hip hopper, land in Leeds, England, and make it for yourself, survive? What resources do you have? What value do you have? What worth do you have? Who can you call? This is what we're dealing with. This is the work of the Temple of Hip Hop, and all affiliated organizations. This is the work. We're building the culture for real, not just out the mouth, but for real. Where's the health care? Where's the retirement? How do you pay mortgage when you're 70 and you've lived hip hop your whole life? What happens? This kind of thing. We have to think about things like this. So anyway, I'm going off into something else. But I put that emphasis on it because you should take this seriously. You should take this very seriously. This is a major time for learning. And then, of course, you're in another country. You can do whatever you want. Get out the country. Feel a different life. Feel a different life. Now, I will warn you, it is rainy and cold over there in England. And it's probably going to be even more rainy and more cold while we're there. So it's not going to be a sunny time. It is going to be, it's London. So it's going to be foggy, it's going to be rainy, and it's going to be cold to some extent. So just know that. But such is the culture of England. And we, as you can see, we're going to be doing mad dates out there in the rain, in the cold, doing our thing. And everybody will be piling out as well to get a glimpse of the hip hop that they miss. So that's what that is. And that's what that is. So that's the announcements. Those are the announcements. Let us get now into the read. Because what we're dealing with here is the Temple of Hip Hop. And after you've read 642 pages of this book, after you've read 642, it's time to enter your temple. Now listen to what I just said. Okay, after reading 642 pages of the gospel, now you may enter the temple of hip hop. You see, with our mouths and with our minds, we could always say, yeah, I'm with the temple of hip hop. But if you have not gone through this book with the teacher, sure, you could say you're part of the temple of hip hop, but you lack this piece of authenticity. You lack this piece of authority. And there is authority, not because oh, I'm closest to the teacher, or I know the most. No, it is that the superiority comes from I have I understand the gospel of hip hop. I and I don't, and see, I'm hesitant because I don't want to give away the test answers. I don't want to give away the test. We're writing the test right now because we're getting to the end of our read. So I'm putting together the test right now, the online test. You take the test, you get your true hip hopper certification. Some of you already have gotten your true hip hopper certification, but you should take the test anyway to see if you are true hip hopper and can live up to that certification. But I say this to say that I didn't want to give away some of the process of the test itself. But there is a superiority to knowledge. And not just, I know this, but how do you know it? If we were to have a conversation, how would you respond? Some people will say, okay, I will give this, okay? Some people will say that, like say two people are talking, and one person will say, I am hip hop. And the other person says, what makes you hip hop? And the person says it again, I am hip hop. Now, the test here would be which one of these people are hip hop? Which one? Is it the one who says, I am hip hop? Or is it the one who says, what makes you hip hop? Now, this is a trick question because once I put this other piece on it, which is, who's real hip hop? The one who questions what hip hop is, or the one who proclaims that they are? And it's this depth that there is no answer to the question. The question, however you answer it, tells us your character. This is the piece. And so some of the test questions is not going to be whether you answer the right question. It's going to expose character. And there's no judgment on the character. It's just, that's who you are. And this is who you are. And this is how you would approach something. And this is how you would approach something. So I mention that because those who have gone through this read, your character should have matured toward the read. You should be giving a divine performance right now in your life, in your study of hip hop. As a matter of fact, once we finish the gospel of hip hop, I expect all of you to be successful in your lives. There's no excuse. There's no excuse. We've laid out the mechanical success for hip hop. We've laid it out. And with evidence, we've laid it out. And with opportunity, like I mentioned. Hey, when the teacher goes on his tours, the Temple of Hip Hop has an opportunity to raise their level of understanding about touring, and about the hip hop life. You meet new people, you set up things for yourself. You got to be in the room. If you're not even in the room, it's nothing. You're just sitting out here dreaming, hoping for an opportunity. But when you're part of something like the Temple of Hip Hop, or really any legitimate hip hop organization, there should be a benefit to that. There should be why am I sitting here listening to this? What's the point? The point is we're building our culture. The point here to this is we're building our teachers. We are training our hip hop teachers, because you have no culture if you have no one who can articulate and teach the culture, pass it on, let people even know that there is a culture. So the beginning of hip hop's culture starts with hip hop's teachers, those who know what culture is and preserves that part of its movement, that part of the social movement called culture, We preserve that part and make the other part of the social movement aware that there's a culture over here. And this is the heat and the engine of what it is that we're doing. We're defining the culture. We're protecting the culture, developing the culture, maintaining the culture, teaching the culture. That's why you're here. Make no mistake, be clear with it. Everybody here is a hip hop teacher. We are expected to go out after this read and teach, and teach, and teach in a unified voice and character. What's the character? The divine performance. What are the principles? The H law. This is the, and we speak in a unified voice. We have a global network now. Now, as teachers, we survive off of ourselves. We cooperate with one another and bring each other to each other's environment, paying the same money that we have set for ourselves. $1,000 per teacher, minimum. $3,000 for teachers of this status, minimum. $5,000 for teachers of this status, minimum. We could set this up right now, and we are, and we are. Those that have eyes to see, see. Those that have ears to hear, hear it. Those that have a mouth to proclaim it, proclaim it. We're starting a profession that is going to feed us into our older years and bring our children along too, if they want a worthwhile profession in their lives. Say, look, I don't want to get a job. I don't want to go here. I don't want to go to school even. I don't want to. Well, where are the Temple of Hip Hop's franchised all over that will teach you a basic education? First of all, basic American or wherever you are education, you know, reading, writing, arithmetic. You can learn that too, right, at the Temple of Hip Hop. Some kind of history, real history on your nation. And then this knowledge on hip hop that's unsurpassed. That's our curriculum right there. Breaking, MCing, graffiti art, DJing, beatboxing, street fashion, street language, street knowledge, and street entrepreneurialism. Our children can learn those 9 elements in our franchise schools. This is what we're doing. Wherever you are listening to me right now, this is what we're doing. We're getting through our gospel of hip hop so that we can establish a unified character amongst teachers and a code of a body of knowledge. We have a body of knowledge that we, hip hop's teachers, its first teachers, from hip hop's first master teacher, we have a sustainable curriculum that can be passed on generation to generation to generation to generation. And our curriculum grows as we grow. New discoveries come in. New evidence is found. This is not a dogma where it's this way and no way. No, that's not how education works. We are the intellectuals that have to grow in our understanding of our own existence. So this teaching is a seed teaching. I am the seed. I am the primitive. I am the primitive, the prime, the first. That's what we all are, the primitive hip hop teachers. We are the first hip hop teachers. We like the name primitive because that's who we are. We have freed our minds from seeing the word primitive as something to look down upon. Did you get that lesson? Did you get that lesson? I'm not a primitive. Nah, see, and that's what I mean about character and about freeing your mind seriously as a hip hop teacher. A primitive. What does primitive mean to you? Well, it should only mean first. It should only mean highest in rank and authority, because that's what it means. Primitive, from the word prime. We are primitive teachers. Why? Because we are the first hip hop teachers. Others can claim the title. Like anyone could say they a basketball player until you meet LeBron. Anybody could say they a football player, and most people play football. And I mean American football, where you throw the ball and stuff, but they're not John Madden. Sorry. Oh, not John Madden. I don't know the gentleman's name. Now I got to get his name. I'm in history. The football player. But no, no. But my point is, you may be into science, but you're not Einstein, and there are some Einsteins out here. And there are some Maddens out here, and there are some
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady. I'm all on. Oh, wait. Joe Madden?
There is a Joe Madden.
There's a Joe Madden.
Okay. Oh, John Madden. There's a John Madden.
So I said it. John Madden. So I said it right the first time.
Well, I thought maybe you were trying to talk about, because you said LeBron. And...
Right. No. I was moving too fast.
Yeah,
no doubt. It's all good. So what is it? John Madden.
Yes, there is a John, but Tom Brady is the nigga now.
Right. There it is. There it is. And that's the point. The point is that there are those that play these sports on your block, and then there are those who play the same sports professionally. And of course, I don't have to claim the superstars. If anybody who plays for the NBA, let's say as an example, professionally, is definitely on another level than somebody who plays the same sport of basketball, but just on their leisure or for a high school game, high school team or something, like that. You aspire to go to the pros. Well, knowledge like this, knowledge of hip hop is the same way. Same way. You are studying with the pros, and I say that humbly. You're studying with the pros. You're studying with the master teacher. You're studying with the primitives of the culture. That's who you're studying with. And that puts a certain authority and authenticity on your teaching of hip hop, And we're dealing with real life. So keep that in mind as well. So, and I have to make that distinction because a lot of people say, they take the title. Let's say I'm a hip hop professor. I'm a hip hop teacher. Some even may call themselves master teacher. But when we really start breaking down the teachings and we start really asking questions about the nature and the methodology of how you're going to impart information from your mind or from your culture to another mind or another part of your culture, that's when everybody starts breaking down. That's when we start getting ums and who's and ha's. And we cannot be like that. We have to know what we're talking about. And that doesn't mean that we don't make mistakes or make errors. Lord knows, y'all know I make errors. I just almost made one now. That's the nature of teaching, is to make errors. Because again, you can't have no ego with this either. You don't want to intentionally make errors. You don't want to be wrong all the time. But when errors arise, that's a teachable moment. That's a teachable moment. You learn from your errors. The way you become a great teacher is through errors, not by getting the right answer all the time. And chances, most of the time, you don't get the right answer until you went through 5 or 6 different errors. Then you get the right answer. So never be ashamed of your mistakes, your errors. It's part of being a teacher. You got to want it. You got to accept correction. I'm always corrected, and I invite the correction. I want to be corrected. Like I say all the time, many of you have probably heard me say this. I'm reaching for perfection. I'm reaching for excellence. I may never attain it ultimately, but the reach for it puts me above everybody else who ain't even trying to do that. And above, not in some dictatorial way, but in a safe way. In a safe way. Where others who choose to live their life in some ridiculous fashion, I don't have those problems. I have wisdom. I can make the right decisions. I have love. I have trust. I have respect. These are the things that have gotten me where I'm in a comfortable state in my own life, where I can be consistent enough to even have these calls right now. This all comes from this. And not just this book itself. This book is the codified version of a life that I've lived. And so each teacher has to atone and your teachings have to show up on your life. Yeah. That's the point. Your teachings have to show up on your life. And so as teachers, all of us, as we study together, you're supposed to be maturing. You're supposed to be seeing a better life for yourself. Not just more money or more food and clothing or a bigger house. Yes, you want that too. But not just that. You want more respect. You want more honor in your community. This is what gives you the ability to teach. You want, um, um, well, what I was gonna say was you can just run down the whole divine performance. You want all that, and the way to get all that is to give all that, and that's the point. And so I just divert to that real quick because that is what a hip hop teacher is. Not so much what you know, but who you are. And the gospel of hip hop unites the temple of hip hop's teachers to a character and knowledge that raises our value. It raises our value. Nobody else is doing this. Nobody else is taking the time to do this. We're setting the precedence right now. And for those of you that are just tuning in to this, maybe a first time, there's always somebody for the first time tuning in. For those of you tuning into this for the first time, go back and check the other lessons at thetempleofhiphop.org. Go back and check those other lessons because, again, even if you're just getting us right now, we recorded most of these lessons. Go back and get the other lessons. Start your reading of the gospel with me right now. Go back to the first one and start your read right there and gain this character. Gain the character. This is why we're also recording these as well. Let's start the read as we get into it. I'm at the 17th Overstanding the Temple of Hip Hop. And like I said, after you've read 642 pages of the gospel, it's time to enter your temple. Peace and much love to all true and attuned members of the Temple of Hip Hop. Peace and much love to you. To all true and attuned. See, now these words have offices to them. We're going to learn this. Actually, we're going to learn this within our read. We read up to, this thing breaks down into about 4 lessons. And we're going to read only the first lesson today about the Temple of Hip Hop, its mission, why we exist. Let's get into this. Peace and much love to all true and attuned members of the Temple of Hip Hop. Be encouraged by this overstanding. It is your true heritage. In my time, your past. Now keep in mind, this passage, the book was, published in 2009. So as I'm putting this together, I'm realizing that not only am I going to be reading this in the future, but future is going to be reading this. 300 years from now, they're going to be reading this as well. 50 years from now, they're going to be reading this as well. 10 years from now. So I'm conscious of the fact that I'm already in the future. In fact, the me that's putting this together is already here with me now. In fact, I'm not certain that the me now reading this is not somehow giving this information to the past me. The future me is giving the past me the information that the future me is going to eventually read. Woo! I'm not certain that that's not what's going on. And this is how the gospel was set up, even for myself, the teacher, was for me to realize and be awake to my total being, that I am still in the past putting this together, writing this together. I'm still in the past doing this. The person that's writing these words is is still in the past, but with an awareness that I have right now. Right now. Look at this. Look at this. In my time, your past. Okay. The creation of a free and prosperous hip hop nation is simply too much for people to comprehend. Now look at this. This is what was going on in my past, back in the past. And for those, when hip hop becomes a free and prosperous nation, this line is going to sound so ridiculous. They're going to say, what? How is this possible? What? Hip hop has its own cities now, and we could go to Hip Hopia. And I just came from Hip Hopia vacation. What do you mean it couldn't be? And this is a documentation of our mentality. That's the point, a documentation of our mentality. In my time, your past, the creation of a free and prosperous hip-hop nation is simply too much for people to comprehend. For whatever reason, they are afraid of the idea. And this is why we have formed our private society to discuss, plan, and encourage those hip-hoppers that can comprehend such a vision. Now, you'll notice that when this was getting, and by the way, this was written years before 2009, but when the book was finally published. But keep in mind here as well that not only are we still in this mind state, but when this was being written, hip-hop was not being discussed like the way it's being discussed today. Like there weren't that many hip-hop people in government, let's say, for instance. Chuck Schumer wasn't around when this was being written. City council people were not, hip-hoppers were not running for city council office when this was happening. So imagine, while we're talking about erecting cities and stuff, this was too much for people to comprehend. Some were barely accepting the idea of hip-hop as culture. Most people were still like, nah, hip-hop is just music, yo. Like, we was like, no, this thing is a little more than music. Look how we dress, how we talk. They couldn't even comprehend it. And these are intellectuals and professors and authors and people that you would think would get it. It took them time. And hip hop had to keep saying what it is and saying what it is and going into the universities and having these discussions and debates. And all of this had to happen for people to now say, yeah, the culture, with it just falls out the mouth now, the culture. But again, very humbly we say, this is the work of the Temple of Hip Hop. Shout out to Zulu Nation as well. I always have to bring my crew along, no doubt. But the Temple of Hip Hop in particular, with the Gospel of Hip Hop, remember, we're writing the books, we're producing the films, we're doing the lectures, we're writing the declarations of peace. This is the work, that part, the work part, okay? While we're doing that work, dudes was like, this is impossible. You can't do this. And they were ridiculing and so on. So realize the time first in which this is being written. This is being written also at the turn of the century, as well. Not like this. I think the pieces toward the end come around after 2000, somewhere around 2003 or 2004. The end pieces of this was written. But you should always know that the first chapters of these overstandings were all written, were actually written as concepts before 1999. I started this in 1994, and by the time we get to 1999, some 5 years later, we have a template for the Gospel of Hip Hop, but we needed a lot more information. But little things like this line, these first few paragraphs were written during that time. And this is as teachers, and that's why I say humbly, ain't nobody bragging here, we're not doing all that. Our work is silent, really, to be honest with you. But I say this for you to understand what the role of a hip hop teacher is. It's not a lot of hoopla and ha-ha and I did this and I did that. It's really about just doing the work and letting the work speak for itself. Those that join the temple, you can know, oh, we did this, oh, we did that, or we were responsible for this and that. You can know that. But the public don't need to know all that. All of hip hop don't need to know all of that. Others can even take credit. That's not our. It's not our concern. That's not our concern. Our concern is, well, first of all, we know the truth. That's it. We have the truth, and the truth is usually documented and has evidence to back it up. That's where we are. So understand this first paragraph is very important. That's why I'm taking the time with this. This is very important. For whatever reason, they are afraid of the idea. That was the first, afraid of it. And this is why we have formed our private society, Ministry Archive School Society. Our private society to discuss, plan, and encourage those hip hoppers that can comprehend such a vision. This is why the Temple of Hip Hop exists. Originally, I wanted everyone who was participating in hip hop to enjoy the fruits of my research, and I did. But as I naively began to express the fact that rap is something we do, hip hop is something we live, and that you are not just doing hip hop, you are hip hop, and that hip hop is a new culture, a new civilization, a new people upon the earth, many sincere and good-hearted rap fans began to accuse me of everything from wanting to own hip hop to starting a cult. Because of this, I stopped trying to openly convince the hip hop community that it was much more than a form of entertainment. And with my friend, Professor Z, I formed the Temple of Hip Hop. And you know Professor Z and so on. He was my advisor as I began to come up with this. I had several advisors. Wait a minute, shout out to Wesley Powell too. Simone was always there. And Randy. Yes, my son Randy on another level. These were advisors as I got this thing started. Shout out to Donna Moore. His name just came to my mind. I guess she's here as well. But Donna Moore used to be Kumo D's manager. She was early Temple of Hip Hop, advising me on a whole bunch of stuff, among others. But I threw Professor Z in because he was the shining light at the time. You know, the PhD, the doctor with the history profession behind him and so on. Plus, the hip hop community, at least the activist community, knew Professor Z very well, especially coming from Human Education Against Lies, touring with me, the whole Kwame Ture connection, all of that. So when ancient people, now this is how the temple starts. When ancient people decided to create a sacred space to have a building or even a whole city constructed upon it, they sent for special priests who were able to interpret the spiritual meaning of the site and the times. Ancient Rome followed this practice with priests known as augurs, who specialized in prophetically interpreting signs. Most of Rome's important buildings or spaces had to be inaugurated by an augur. This is where the word inauguration comes from. They were augurs. That's what they called them in Roman, in Greco-Roman times, is augurs. And these augurs were trained by Kendakes, the queen mothers, the priestly women of Africa and of Ethiopia, Kush, Egypt. These women, and it was some even relegate them to the Isis cult and so on. But these were some amazing women. They spoke to birds and so on. The Hindi language, the language of the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, the language, what is called Devanagari, that language is said to have been created by Black women tweeting like birds, speaking what is called bird song. They were able to interpret events and future events as well as what went on at that spot. by talking to birds or interpreting the movement of birds. These were real people too, by the way. This is no fantasy. This is none of that. This is documented. This is what happened, and documented in several cultures, several nations, ancient nations, history of themselves and of their daily events. These women, we know them as Kandakes today, but that's just a blanket name for these kinds of women, priestly women that were teaching people, eventually teaching people how to do this. Well, when they got to Rome and to Greece, they started teaching through the Isis cult, which is the only one that we can remember from this time. There were many others, but they're teaching, and this is where the Greeks now and the Romans are getting the word augur, and probably because they can't spell N, Nauger. You got to get the book Real Niggas by KRS-ONE. I break down that whole thing there. But the augur is the Greco-Roman term for these kinds of priests who are trained by African Kandake women. The augur would delineate a section of the earth or sky that was called a templum. When a temple or any important structure was built, it was built in that ritually outlined space, a templum. The word templum itself is cognate with the Greek temnin. Here, let me spell it. Temnein. Temnin. Or temnein. Meaning to cut. In this case, to cut off with boundaries. In ancient Rome, this was all the work of augurs, who would ritually outline sacred spaces for state functions to take place. When the Temple of Hip Hop was established in 1996, I envisioned a spiritual, cultural templum in hip hop space-time reality. Now remember, hip hop is not a physical thing. Hip hop is a shared idea. So when we say a templum for hip hop, we are putting a sacred space in the idea of hip hop. Do you hear me? Hip hop is a shared idea. It is a collective consciousness. Hip hop never enters the physical world. There's no place that hip hop is. You can't go to hip hop, eat hip hop, wear hip hop. Hip hop exists within us as a shared idea. Hip hop becomes physical when we become it. When we say, I am hip hop. Hip hop becomes physical, it becomes real. I mention this because when we say that the Temple of Hip Hop is a sacred space in hip hop, in the idea of hip hop, realize what we're saying. When you say hip hop, there's a lot of things that come to your mind relating to hip hop. Breakers, MCs, graffiti, but if you're really up on your hip hop, if you're really about this culture in any of its elements, if you're really about the culture, if you're about the community of hip hop, then you know the Temple of Hip Hop exists. Casual listeners to rap music may not know of our existence, or any other, hip hop coalition, the Hip Hop Alliance, Zulu Nation. You may not know about all that if you're just a casual listener of rap music. But if you are a hip hop professor, if you are a teacher of hip hop in one of the universities, if you are an activist about hip hop, you're an MC, serious about your deal, or b-boy, graph writer, DJ, beatboxer, whatever, and you serious about the culture, you know about the Temple of Hip Hop. You know that hip hop has a gospel. If you're a reader of hip hop, you know hip hop has a gospel. Among all its books, you know hip hop has a gospel for itself. So this is what we mean. This has been the first part of our work, that hip hop as an idea can't be all about criminality, bitches and hoes, drug deals, and poverty. This is what we went up against. This is what mainstream media wanted to make hip hop in everybody's mind, and some are still thinking that. When you say hip hop, what do you think of? Criminals, or they go straight to Black Lives Matter, but nothing else. Nothing else. This is the, some people, you know, if you get your hip hop from mass media, this is what you get. This is what you might feel about hip hop. This is what your vision of hip hop may be. But for those that know the truth, and for those that are serious about the culture, you know that there is a Zulu nation within hip hop. You know that there's a temple of hip hop within hip hop. Some may know of the Hip Hop Congress. So these are sacred spaces in hip hop's space-time reality. And it's space-time reality. Right? You know, when I say space, I mean us. Time, you know, you can say the 50 years. But hip hop as a metaphysical idea, as we are all thinking it. If you think of hip hop altogether and you're serious about, you know, you have an accurate approach to hip hop in your mind, you know there's a temple of hip hop within your explanation of hip hop or your interpretation of hip hop. You know there's a temple of hip hop. That's our work. That we're conscious of the fact that we are a sacred space within hip hop. And when I say sacred space too, that doesn't mean goody two shoes. That doesn't mean, oh, you know, we're just so positive within hip hop. That's not what sacred means. Sacred means that others, this is a boundary. Others, you just ain't invited here. Okay, this is a specific thing, and it has boundaries around it. And the boundaries are not that you can't come in. The boundary is your own consciousness itself. It's almost like a smell, like a skunk smell. You're walking along and you, hit that smell. Oh gosh, you don't walk in that direction. You walk in another direction. The word of God stinks to the devil. And likewise, the word of the devil stinks to the gods. And so we move around smelling everything and saying, nah, I'm not going over there. A lot of people smell the temple of hip hop and say, nah, no, I can't do that. All we preaching is the word of God. All we preaching is positivity, wisdom, knowledge. That's all we preaching. How our culture can come together and be strong. No, there's still those that would be like, nah, I can't smell that. I smell this. And rightfully so. So there's a templum within hip hop's intention of itself, in its vision of itself. There is a sacred space in that vision, and it's called the temple of hip hop. That's who we are in the vision of hip hop itself. In hip hop's world history, when they sit down to write about hip hop during this time, they will not be able to discuss hip hop without the temple of hip hop, or it will be a deliberate cover up of our work, which can happen too. Let's continue. I was at paragraph 5. When the Temple of Hip Hop was established in 1996, I envisioned a spiritual cultural templum in hip hop space-time reality. Just as portions of the earth and sky are delineated as sacred spaces in physical reality, the Temple of Hip Hop is a delineated space in hip hop's cultural and perceptual reality. In a poem that appears on the I Got Next album, I stated, quote, "The big brother watching over you is a lie, you see. Hip hop could build its own secret society. But first, you and I got to unify, stop the negativity, and control our creativity," end quote. When I realized that I was not just doing hip hop, but that I was hip hop itself, I also realized the reality that came along with such a realization. I began to perceive my physical world through a heightened sense of purpose and duty. I no longer wanted to use hip hop. I now wanted to care for and nurture hip hop. I wanted to protect hip hop's reputation as if it were my own. I literally united with the idea of hip hop and gained an insight, a power, a new understanding as to how I could actually live my life, and it is wonderful. When I realized my true self as hip hop, I gained certain abilities that came with the acceptance of the hip hop nature. And look at what I'm saying to you here. And this is just really a diary, really at this point, a journal, really that I just added here, because you got to realize, like I said, we're teaching in real time and we're teaching with real life. Nothing I'm saying to you is 2,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago. Nothing I'm saying to you is in the future, gonna happen, have faith and it's gonna come. None of that's here. The person you're listening to right now is experiencing everything that he is teaching and saying to you, you can experience this as well. Some of what I'm teaching, or some of what you've seen, is unique to me because I'm me. But the principles and the effects of the principles by which I am teaching are transferable. You take hip hop seriously, hip hop gonna take you seriously. When I realized my true self as hip hop, I gained certain abilities that came with the acceptance of the hip hop nature. Those that have their gospel on paragraph 7, which is what I just read, look at the spelling of the hip hop in which I'm gaining this awareness through. When I realized my true self as hip hop consciousness, I gained certain abilities that came with the acceptance of hip hop, with the acceptance of the hip hop nature, consciousness, the nature of the hip hop consciousness. My freestyle got sharper. My rhyme writing abilities intensified to the point where I was doing 14-song albums in a couple of days. This is what happens when you realize that you hip hop. My live MC performances became the livest in the touring market. Very few rappers even wanted to go on stage after me. The energy was too great. Now remember, I'm speaking to the future too. Okay, I'm talking to, this is going on right now. Okay, but I'm also talking to the future that's not going to meet me, not going to know me. And they're going to be reading this like, really? Really? And hopefully they can see, hopefully there'll be some evidence lingering around, but this is what it is. But this is what happens when you realize the hip hop consciousness. Like I said, you're supposed to be maturing. If you've gotten through 642 pages of this gospel, you're supposed to be maturing. In my case, my freestyle got sharper. My rhyme writing abilities intensified to the point where I was doing 14-song albums in a couple of days, like over a weekend. My live MC performances became the livest in the touring market. I was already live, no doubt. Criminal Minded, from Criminal Minded to there was By All Means Necessary, Ghetto Music, Edutainment, right around Edutainment, right around Sex and Violence, right around there is where I'm realizing, hold up, I am hip hop. Now I was already crushing shows, no doubt, but somewhere around 93 with Return of the Boom Bap, somewhere around 93, 94, you could see the attitude change right there. You could see it. I didn't care anymore about being platinum or gold. I didn't care about it no more. I didn't care about the award shows and this. Those that followed my career back then, you'll see that from Criminal Minded all the way up to 1994, which was Return of the Boom Bap, all of those albums, I'm doing Arsenio Hall, I'm chilling at the Grammys, we doing Yo MTV Raps, we're doing BET's Rap City, we're all over the television, okay? But during that time on television, I learned what the game was. And I was like, I don't like this game. This is crazy what's going on. And I slowly began to wean myself out of that, and slowly, only because I couldn't believe what was going on and what people was actually going for. You want to be a slave? You really want this for yourself. Why? For fame and for money? So you could front on the block? You ready to give up your dignity, ready to give up your heritage, ready to undercut and undersell yourself. Well, I saw that because I was in the industry. I'm not talking from outside of it, criticizing this artist or that one. Nah, we was in it, okay, in it. I did MTV, I did BET, I did all of the award shows, and we did all of that, and we looked and we saw, and we said, this is going to be at the expense of our culture. And some of us, a lot of us really, but not many of us, but a lot of us said, no, we'll forfeit the American Music Award, we'll forfeit the Grammy, we'll forfeit all of that to speak truth and speak truth to the power, okay? Not just to our congregation, but when it's time to speak up against police brutality, we're gonna speak up. When it's time to speak up against unchecked capitalism, we're gonna speak up. When it's time to look at these schools and talk about what they teaching us, we're gonna speak up. When it's time to talk about the Bible and its Black African characters, we're gonna speak up. Well, a lot of people cowered to those very concepts and didn't speak up. And with all due respect, they the ones that got the money, got the awards, got the big tours during the 90s, and respect to them. Because everybody's not ordained for this. So you can't judge nobody. But that's what happened. Many people went with the corporations because they were paying, they had the power, or the repair that they did, and that's what it was. But there were others of us that was reading this. And we was like, oh, no, 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 no. There's going to be an independent hip-hop existence independent of this corporate bullshit. We know it's bullshit. We know it's bullshit. And we still gonna jump in? Nah, we're not doing that. So we forfeited all of that. And it wasn't easy, y'all. I'm gonna tell you right now, it was not easy. It was not easy. It wasn't easy emotionally. Well, for me it was, but for other artists, it wasn't easy emotionally. But financially, it was tough on everybody speaking truth. We wasn't getting nothing. We had to hustle. We had to do, but I tell you how God works. Because having to hustle, having to get our own shows, having to award and validate ourselves created the monster that you see today. Now we don't need these motherfuckers. Get out of here now. We book our own shows. We do our own thing now. So get out of here. But had we, relied on them at the beginning, thinking, let's just be fair to one another. We all can get money. Let's just be fair. We wouldn't have learned this lesson if they weren't the corporations, the booking agencies, the universities, the record companies, the broadcast companies, these video companies. They were all dissing us, straight up dissing, and they still are. But back then, there was no other game in town. There was no internet. There was nothing. It was just them. And if you didn't appear on that thing there, your career was over. And that lasted really, even as the internet came in, that didn't really leave until after 2000, 2001, 2. Then the internet starts to take on more of a precedence. They're showing movies on the internet now, and you could broadcast your album or, to have these conferences and all of this type of stuff now on the internet. You can do your own thing, speak to your own people now. But remember back in the days when this was getting written, okay, there was none of that. And if you spoke up about what was going on, they cut you out of their platform. And it's still the same to this day. To this day. So much dope music out there. So many really good movies out there. So many, so much talent out there. None of it's being heard. None of it's being heard. None of it. None of it. You have to be part of a clique. You got to be part of this one's team to be, and usually they're making money on you. So that's how you become part of the team, because we get the piece. of whatever it is your value is. So if you're not willing to hold yourself, you don't get on these platforms. And that's the truth. Y'all should know that. I mean, you artists out there listening, thinking that, you know, I'm going to do a record and get on MTV or do a record and be on some corporate thing. If that's the game you want to play, then go for it. It's a whole game. You know what I'm saying? And some people play the whole game until they had enough, and then they become pimps themselves. But I don't feel like playing the whole game. Never played the whole game. I'm not a hoe. Therefore, when the whole game came to us, we was like, nope, not doing it. We're going with God. We're going with culture. We're going with our ancestors. And that was a crime back in the 90s, back in the early 2000s. We got laughed at. We got ridiculed. We got told we starting cults and got messiah complexes, and people didn't play our music and dissed us behind our backs and all of this type of stuff. We endured all of it, not just me. Anybody who was speaking truth had to endure this. But if you're speaking truth, see, this is the point. If you're speaking truth, you will endure. And we have endured. And that's why I'm speaking the truth to you right here, the documented truth right here. And I'm documenting a time when this truth was not so prevalent. Now award shows, it's like, it's for the culture. The same award shows that was totally against the culture. But this is progress. This is progress. The teacher doesn't judge. I'm not judging, you know, because if somebody doesn't know 1 + 1 = 2, and then you tell them, you know, 1 + 1 = 2. And then they say, I get it now. 1 + 1 = 2. You can't fault them for the time they didn't know. Everybody else can, but not a teacher. And it's, again, when I'm talking about character, you can't criticize those you're teaching, but you can talk about their time of ignorance and the effects of it, because people do dumb shit, okay? And then just because you gain enlightenment doesn't mean you go back and correct the dumb shit, okay? You got to go back and correct the dumb shit. You spilt the milk, you broke the glass, okay, you realize I can't do that no more, but you still got to clean up the milk and clean up the glass. A lot of people ain't doing that. They just did dumb shit, realized themselves, and just said, oh, I get it now. Never go back and clean up. And hip-hop's teachers, we're not judging, but to explain our culture accurately, you got to go back to the dumb shit. You know, you got to go back in and be like, why we look like this today? Because 10 years ago when we were supposed to do this, we didn't do it. Yo, why do we have this today? Because 10 years ago when we were supposed to do something, we did it. Okay, well, this is what it is. And this is also the work of the temple. This is also the work of our temple as well. So paragraph 8. When I surrendered to my true nature as hip hop, certain hip hop doors began to open for me. My popularity went up. My I Am Hip Hop tour merchandise became hood favorites, complete with knockoffs and bootlegs in every state. And I love that. I was so amazed when people started making their own I Am Hip Hop shirts and started wearing them. That was crazy. In every state. In fact, Black Entertainment Television created a whole I Am Hip Hop Lifetime Achievement Award presentation within their BET Awards production with Grandmaster Flash, which Grandmaster Flash received in 2006 and I received in 2007. Look at that too, Grandmaster Flash and KRS-ONE, and we're doing this album for the 50th. That's just a little prophetic, I don't even know what to say to that, but here it is. The point to all of this is that when I took on the spirit of hip hop, maybe that explains it, my outer reality magically transformed to fit my inner nature. I discovered the reality of peace, love, unity, and safely having fun as an attuned hip hopper, even while others were experiencing conflict, hatred, disunity, and depression in my same environment. Saddened by this, I would try to accept certain people as apprentices and even rent spaces in various cities to teach the results of my revelation. This is what went down. This is a rundown as to how the temple started. The result of my revelations. But most people just wanted to start or expand their rap careers, or get some money, or just stand next to me so that they can brag about the fact that they knew KRS-ONE. These were very frustrating times for me. This is the early part of the temple when we first started. Realizing that I might be ahead of my time, I began to write for you, my future. That's right now, for us now, okay? My future. I began to see that it was not I alone who was to establish our hip hop nation. It was you. You, my future, many of whom are not even born yet. That's speaking further on. I can never claim to be better than anyone else or above anyone else. But when our children look back upon hip hop's real history, what shall they see? How are we guiding the hundreds of generations that are to come after us? Sometimes I wonder, is this even important to anyone besides myself? Let me also go to this is going to be our first highlight. Actually, it's going to be our first underline. I want you to underline this part here. When our children look back upon hip hop's real history, what shall they see? Just underline that. It's part of a sentence. It says, I can never claim to be better than anyone else or above anyone else. And that's real talk. But, and here's where the underline comes in. When our children look back upon hip hop's real history, what shall they see? Now, we underline that because if you have your gospel of hip hop, you'll see at the back of this. Let me see if I can get this. Okay, you see that? Right here, when our children look back upon hip hop's real history, what shall they see? That's why you underline that, because that's where that is in the book. This is just one of the these are some of the highlights that the publisher pulled out to put on the back of the book. What he thought was important within the book. And you can see at the back of the book, there's 4 pieces. Ask not how did hip hop happen, but why did hip hop happen? And this one, when our children look back upon hip hop's real history, what will they see? And there's another one. Is there a bigger picture that we are not aware of? And are you ready to discover the hip hop spiritual life? Now, if you notice, the publisher's treating this as pointers in the book, but he's making a full statement. It's that publishing language, that advertised book language. But you can see the key part here is when our children look back upon hip hop's real history, what shall they see? Is there a bigger picture that we're not aware of? Are you ready to discover hip hop's spiritual life? The hip hop spiritual life? And this is the piece. So you underline that here. It's just to point it out. How are we guiding the hundreds of generations that are to come after us? Sometimes I wonder, is this even important to anyone besides myself? Not everyone ponders these questions or their role in the creation of hip hop's real history and heritage, but many of us do. I do. And I know that I am not the only one who feels this way. Those of us who do think very deeply about the past, present, and future states of hip hop as an internationally celebrated urban culture and lifestyle eventually join the temple of hip hop. Our society practices hip hop as consciousness in an effort to establish hip hop as a nation. Our role today is to be the nation that we would like to see. Did you hear that? Because now you are about to highlight well, first of all, underline our society practices hip hop as a consciousness in an effort, as consciousness in an effort to establish hip hop as a nation. Our role is to be the nation that we would like to see. That is direct, okay? This is the shining meaning of our temple. And you'll notice that everything else is going to come around this right here. Underline that and highlight from 12 all the way to 22. From paragraph 12 all the way to paragraph 22. Highlight paragraph 22 as well. You're highlighting paragraph 22. You're highlighting from 12 to 22. 10 paragraphs. Give you a moment to do that. From 12 to 22. This is the meaning of the temple of hip hop. This is it. If someone's asking you about the temple, or if you have to explain the temple of hip hop, or if you're in front of a congregation and people, first time temple members, you got a congregation together, you want to explain to them what the temple is about, you're coming right here to page 646 and 647. And you're looking at paragraphs 12 to 22. 12 to 22. Here's why. 12. Our role today is to think and act like the nation we desire our children to live within. Here, we envision an urban spiritual movement that brings awareness to the rejected, awakens the minds of those without guidance, saves our people from their own errors in life, and restores them to spiritual maturity in peace, not with judgment and criticism, but with a sincere care for those who simply do not know or have forgotten spiritual law. This is number one. Why do we exist as a temple? Our role today is to think and act like the nation we desire our children to live within. Here, we envision an urban spiritual movement that brings awareness to the rejected, us, okay? You don't want to mess with us, the rejected, those of us who every church, every synagogue, every mosque, every temple has nothing to do with and don't have no word for. The temple of hip hop got a word for you. Here we envision an urban spiritual movement that brings awareness to the rejected, awakens the minds of those without guidance, saves our people from their own errors in life, saves our people from their own errors, meaning hip hop people, not a black people, a white people, a red and yellow and green people. We're above that. Our people is hip hop. Anybody with the hip hop character is our people. Those without guidance awakens the minds of those without guidance, saves our people from their own errors in life, and restores them to spiritual maturity in peace. Restoring hip hop spiritual maturity in peace. And that's a loaded word, because there's a whole thing with that does deal also, it goes into ethnicities and racial and cultural and how we could deal with that within hip hop. Dr. Martin Luther King, the sons of former slaves, the sons of former slave owners sitting at the table of brotherhood, that reconciliation point, that's hip hop right here. And you can see spiritually how we all can be healed, how everyone can be healed, especially black people and white people. This socio-political designation for these specific human beings, we can heal each other within hip hop through a spiritual reality that recognizes truth. Simple and plain, just recognizes truth. If you can't recognize truth, then spirituality is gone. Because that's all spirituality is the pursuit of the truth, or really the attainment of it. So if you can't really see the truth, if you can't respond to facts and evidence and reason and logic and rational thinking, and then this is just not, we're not doing nothing. But this here is for people who actually want to be part of that and want to be part of that. And those who are part of that are our people. Everybody part of this call is our people. Not with judgment and criticism, but with a sincere care for those who simply do not know or have forgotten spiritual law. We're not judging nobody here, y'all. We are just teaching those that don't know. And you may think that you may think somebody knows something. You should never think that. You should let them say to you, I know. Oh, yeah, I know that. Never assume that a person knows something, especially if they acting contrary to what you know they supposed to know. Paragraph 13, we believe in perceiving God, period. Let me hit you with it again. Paragraph 13, we believe and perceive in God. That's it. The Temple of Hip Hop continues to investigate, preserve, and promote the reality and nature of God. Through the language and culture of hip hop, we exist to interpret and teach the spiritual reality of hip hop itself, as well as hip hop's relation to the divine. The Temple of Hip Hop does not induce mystical experiences. It acknowledges them. And that's an important part to make. We're not inducing mystical experiences. You come to the temple, we're going to have a seance, or, we're going to burn incense and you're going to see visions. That's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is through reason, logic, evidence, facts. We're proving God. We're proving civilization. We're proving it, not wishing on it. We're proving it. Paragraph 14. With God's guidance, we teach healing through awareness, rehabilitation through truth, and peace through purpose. These are the keys to life. With God's guidance, notice capital G-O-D, the sovereign mind of the universe. With God's guidance, we teach healing through awareness. Healing through awareness. Rehabilitation through truth. Bouncing back based on truth. And peace. Peace. We teach peace through purpose. This is what we know works. Healing, rehabilitation, and peace through awareness, truth, and purpose. Take these words seriously. These are the keys to life. Those that have ears to hear, hear it. This is so important. I want to move on, but I can't. With God's guidance, we teach healing. This is why I'm stumbling here. Do you realize that you get what you teach? I'm trying to teach this lesson, but I realize that what I am teaching is what I am getting. So I'm getting God's guidance right now. And with that guidance, I'm teaching healing through awareness. I am being rehabilitated through truth. I'm finding my peace through my purpose. Do you understand that this is happening to me right now? Like right now. The authenticity and trueness of our teachings are based upon its compatibility with the apprentice's own heart. You will know if you are part of our nation by the feeling that such an idea gives you. G. Simone, such a feeling. By the feeling that such an idea gives you. Like, you're going to know you're part of the nation because what I'm teaching you right here, you feel it in your heart. You feel like, yes, that's me. Yes, I teach through healing. I'm looking for healing through awareness, rehabilitation through truth, and peace through purpose. The authenticity and trueness of our teachings, They ain't got to convince nobody of nothing. The authenticity and trueness of our teachings are based upon their compatibility with the apprentice's own heart. That's the trueness of it. When we speak, your own heart goes, yep, got it. You will know if you are part of our nation by the feeling that such an idea gives you. With God's guidance, we envision a hip-hop society that empowers itself through a heightened level of spiritual skill and a unified comprehension of its cultural principles and codes. I already went over that. What us teachers are about. One that would teach its people to live beyond the material world and their own physical senses, cravings, wants, desires, etc., in an effort to experience a heightened level of health, love, awareness, and wealth, and most of all, truth. Let me hit you with that one more time, because this talks about the teacher's character to those that are being taught, how we are to walk in the world. We talked about that. You can go to the Declaration. You can do the Declaration of Peace. But no, you could go to the divine performance and look there always for the character of the teacher. You could also look at the 11th overstanding, the teacher, there as well, as a piece there as well. But here, look at this. With God's guidance, we envision a hip-hop society that empowers itself through a heightened level of spiritual skill. Our hip-hop society empowers itself through a heightened level of spiritual skill. And so we get spiritual skill too, and a comprehension of its own cultural principles and codes. We are united by our comprehension of our gospel. We're united by our comprehension of our ordinances, our codes, our principles. And we are united in that. That's going to raise our self-worth. That raises our value, our unity around our own codes and principles. So it says, and a unified comprehension of its own cultural principles and codes, one that would teach its people to live beyond the material world and their physical senses, cravings, wants, desires, in an effort to experience a heightened level of health, love, awareness, and wealth, and most of all, truth. That's what we're teaching. That's what we're teaching. Health, love, awareness, and wealth. Get away from those cravings, those desires. We all got cravings and desires. You wouldn't be human if you didn't. But what we're talking about here is being superhuman. We are talking about that. So you got to get past the physical senses, your touch, taste, sight, hearing, smell, all that. You got to be able to live past that. You got to be able to live past the craving, past the desire. You got to be able to live past that, past your wants. You know, can you be rejected and still feel comfortable? You know, knowing that another door might open or that this is not for you. You know, what's your emotional state like? This is the true meaning of spirituality. At least for us, this is the true meaning of spirituality. When you're living in an urban environment and you have to you have to survive modern urban life and survive well and get through well. Paragraph 16. Hip-hoppers who commit to the teachings of the Temple of Hip-Hop join a community of like-minded people who practice hip-hop beyond entertainment. Temple members help one another through the obstacles of life. We protect one another. We advise one another. We respect one another. We love one another. We support one another, such is our strength. And it will take this strength to develop and sustain our nation. Hit it one more time. Temple members help one another through the obstacles of life. We protect one another. We advise one another. We respect one another. We love one another. We support one another. Such is our strength. And it will take this strength to develop and sustain our nation. Hope you got that. Here's now we run down the MAS, Ministry, Archive, School, and Society. Our ministry society is not a fan club, nor a recording or fashion corporation. The Temple of Hip Hop is not even a physical place. It is an international hip hop preservation ministry, archive, school, and society, MAS. As a ministry, we promote the divinity of hip hop and its culture, period. Again, as a ministry, we promote the divinity of hip hop and its culture. We seek to relieve human suffering through the awareness of useful spiritual knowledge. We are a self-realization ministry. We believe that God speaks through one's true purpose in life. As an archive, the A of the Mass, as an archive, we seek to collect, document, and promote hip-hop spiritual and material experiences in the world. Our aim is to continue developing our traveling hip-hop exhibits and official hip-hop museum archive for the remembrance and study of hip-hop's history, art, and culture. We intend to educate the public as to hip-hop's spiritual first causes and material effects beyond music entertainment. And remember when this was written, like I said, today we've satisfied that, or we're satisfying that with our Hip Hop 50 Years exhibition. With our Hip Hop 50 Years exhibition, we're satisfying that. This very archive right now. And notice how we're doing our ministry. We're doing now the archive. Look at the archive. And notice what the archive is saying. And when this was written, none of this was this was not possible. And that's what I want to keep bringing to you. That this is the true meaning of faith on that level, the true meaning of it. To see what is not, to see the unseen, to go to places that don't exist. And then, of course, make them exist or make them seen. Well, as an archive, we seek to collect, document, and promote hip-hop's spiritual and material experiences in the world. This was before the Universal Hip Hop Museum was even in existence. This is before any of these museums were in existence, really. There was none of these museums did not exist before this was written. Museum archive for the remembrance and study of hip-hop's history, art, and culture. We intend to edutain the public as to hip-hop's spiritual first causes and material effects beyond music entertainment. And that's what we're doing in everything that we're doing, from 1520 to the Universal Hip Hop Museum, to what's going on in Miami with the Graffiti Museum, to everybody. We have reached this level. As a school, we seek to teach hip-hop, and hip-hop, respelling. To all interested apprentices, students, we believe that a good education does not prepare you for the job market exclusively. We believe that a good education helps you to realize and perfect your true purpose in life. Such an education helps you to become a better you. That's the point of our education, like I said. For hip-hoppers, breaking, MCing, graffiti, art, DJing, beatboxing, street fashion, street language, street knowledge, and street entrepreneurialism, along with reading, writing, and arithmetic, and a little bit of history of the nation in which you live within. That's a full education. You can go far with that, very far with that level of education. We intend to build schools that teach that. In the meantime, I just completed an introduction to hip hop, the masterclass version of it. You got to see this. It is amazing. The masterclass version of this. It's called An Introduction to Hip Hop, and we'll probably have it ready maybe next week or the week after. It'll probably premiere during November. Maybe we'll save it for November. But we just finished it up. It is amazing. Nice first-time lecture, and it's called An Introduction to Hip Hop. Again, teaching teachers how to teach hip hop, but it's done in masterclass format, and you'll see. You'll see. The temple will be able to see it, and so on. Finally, you have as a hip hop society, we seek to preserve hip hop's original causes, whether it is with skill, influence, knowledge, art, and or money. As a society, our existence and activity ensure hip hop's proper documentation in world history. This is what I mean about a templum, okay? In world history, we exist. So it don't matter what you want to criminalize our culture, you want to say we all this and that, and that. No, we're not. Because while you trying to criminalize our culture in mass media, world history knows that the temple of hip hop exists, and this is its point of view. Game over. Temple members silently help one another through the challenges of life. Without advertising the fact that we are temple members, our aim is to silently relieve human suffering whenever and wherever possible. Temple members are those hip hoppers who share a basic thirst for truth and an unshakable love for hip hop. This is an ancient teaching as well. Real quick, I'll just give it to you. Back in the days, those who represented God for real did things for people on behalf of God. They made God real in another person's life by doing things and not taking credit for them. This is where all glory to God, all praises due to Allah. Give all the glory to the deity. Give all glory to the ancestors. And or sometimes you would just do things and not be seen doing them. For instance, sometimes sometimes I pay for people's food. If I see, somebody may came over to me and took a picture, and he went back and I see he has a family there, like 6 people there, they all chowing down. They didn't ask me to pay for their food. They ain't asked for none of that. But silently before I walk out, I say, yo, cover their food. Here's this. Pay for their meal. And I don't even give them a chance to thank me. I just leave. And leave it at that. Sometimes you might leave a note. God loves you. Or God hears your prayers. Or something like that. And you just leave it. It's going to be a shock to them. They're going to know it was you, KRS. They're going to know. But they're going to feel that God force too. They're going to feel that God force. Other times, sometimes me and Simone, sometimes we do it and you don't even know it's us. We just pay for the people's food. We just do this a while back. Just pay. Mostly now, we can't even walk in these restaurants nowadays. Everybody wants to pay for our food and drink now in that situation. But on behalf of God, sometimes you do things for people and you don't take the credit. And it feels good too. You should try it. Sometimes just leaving a basket of food for somebody and just walking away. Somebody who might need some groceries. You go get the groceries, some staples, put it by their door, and just leave. They ain't got to know who did it, nothing. You can just leave a note, God loves you, or something. Other people as well, those who you could see, like you visibly do something. Like, for instance, people who are, in the street. More and more people I notice, when you're driving, I know some of you that may drive, you see people in the street, war veterans, other people are begging for money. I'm noticing more and more that when I come upon these people, they know who I am. My fans, some of my early fans are now in the street too. It's not everyone because there's mental issues and Vietnam vets and all of this. But I'm noticing it's just starting too. That sometimes, like I was in Philly the other day, 2 weeks ago. So when I was in Philly, as I came into Philly, just off the bridge, there's a gentleman there in a wheelchair running between the cars looking for money, and I had a 20 there for him. I was getting ready to hit him here. I was going to hit him. And when I roll the window down, oh, KRS-ONE! Yo, this is a godsend. What a blessing. And so I hit him with the 20 then. Then he lost it. It was like, yo. But it's like sometimes just the help and a kind word or, a gift, even, you know, shows the godliness in you, shows the divinity in you, the ability to want to help, the desire to help. That's a divine ability, and you shouldn't take it for granted. The want to give to somebody else, to see a smile on somebody else's face. Remember, that's the character of God. Like, remember, if you have a smile on your face, only a God is satisfied with that. Another human being is getting crunchy. Hi, why he smiling and I ain't? What you laughing for? Why you always got that smirk on your face? Why? Because their life is not what it is. Or you smiling because you got a victory, and somebody else is like, well, damn, I ain't getting the victory what I'm smiling for. It ain't my victory, it's his victory. It's her victory, it's their victory. That attitude. These are ungodly characters according to what we're teaching and learning. The godly character, according to what we're teaching and learning, is to rejoice in somebody else's fortune and not rejoice in someone's misfortune. You know, the opposite is true. People have misfortunes and people actually feel good about it. Ah, yeah, he deserved that. Yeah, I'm glad that should have, right, because look at what they were doing. Ungodly character according to what we're teaching here. According to what we're teaching here. The hip-hop spiritual character does not rejoice in someone else's misfortune, even your own enemies, or if you have any, or somebody you don't agree with. You don't rejoice in someone's misfortune, or when justice comes to that person. You don't rejoice on the misfortune of another person. You may look at the situation and say, he had it coming. But there's no rejoice. It's an acknowledgement of a truth. Likewise, there's no sadness or jealousy or even rejoice if somebody else gets a victory. It's truth. Yup, they got the victory. Shouldn't we all acknowledge that this person is champion right now? That's it. Now, I would suggest that when you see somebody unfortunate, swell up the love in your heart to help them out. If you can't help them out, sentimental prayer. Hope the best for them. Those that you see prospering, victorious, getting where they gotta go, cheer them on. Feel good about them. Join their prosperity with a uniting feeling. You may get some of it yourself. But it's always better to feel good about somebody's prosperity or victory than to sit there jealously looking, where's mine? The godly character wants charity, wants to give, wants you to be happy. So look again well, I'll start from in the middle here. Temple members silently help one another through the challenges of life. Without advertising the fact that we are temple members, we aim to silently relieve human suffering whenever and wherever possible. Temple members are those members who share the basic thirst for truth and an unshakable love for hip-hop. Like our society, our nation is not a physical place. Yes, we shall establish a physical landmass for our nation. But in reality, our nation is an attitude, a behavior, a collective consciousness that transcends race, religion, nationality, and economic class. The borders of our nation are psychological. We limit ourselves to the title of hip-hop or hip-hop so that we may recognize each other by name and nature. That was paragraph 22, and that's the end of the highlight. We're highlighting from 12 to 22. That whole thing I just read is highlighted. You should study it. You should study it because this is what the Temple of Hip Hop's internal structure is really all about, and we're going to get deeper now. We are not of that higher circle. We are of that higher circle. We are not fee women and men. We are free women and men. Even when we have jobs to do or employment to hold on to, we are still not trapped in the environment of corporate business, where one goes along with injustice and continues corporate exploitation with the statement, "I'm just doing my job." We remain free and self-directed. We are hip hop. We help people whenever and wherever and whenever we can. Our temple houses our God, and in God we trust. Our spiritual goals include getting out of our own way so that God may manifest through us. The temple of hip hop, and notice the spellings on the God as well. The temple of hip hop leads hip hoppers toward God and the divinity of hip hop's culture, not toward itself. The temple of hip hop is a hip hop, and did you get that? Let me hit you with it again. The temple of hip hop leads hip hoppers toward God and the divinity of hip hop's culture, not toward itself. The temple of hip hop is a spiritual hip hop movement concerned with overcoming the obstacles and temptations of street life and institutional entrapment and sabotage. As the sacred seal of our temple depicts, our vision and motto is victory over the streets. Our great seal with its 40 berries signifying the authority to teach, its street light in the background where hip hop first receives power, its 9 sun rays representing hip hop's 9 elements, and the sun holding a boombox symbolizing hip hop's social victory through simple and widely used technology, all come together to remind future members of the Temple of Hip Hop the meaning and purpose of our institution. Our sacred seal, and this is explaining the seal. I'm stumbling here because I'm thinking if I should have one. Oh, wait a minute. I think we have one on the thing. Yeah, that's too small. No, you know what? I have no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm explaining the Temple of Hip Hop's seal. And notice how, well, let me just keep going, okay? Let me hit 25 one more time and go right into 26. Our great seal with its 40 berries signifying the authority to teach. And notice what this is about. The authority to teach. It's street light in the background where hip hop first receives power. It's 9 sun rays representing hip hop's 9 elements. And the sun holding a boombox symbolizing hip hop's social victory through simple and widely used technology. That's what the boombox means. Our victory over the streets through widely used technology. Simple and widely used technology. All come together to remind future members of the Temple of Hip Hop the meaning and purpose of our institution. Our sacred seal shows the Divine Mother holding her son's hand in victory over the oppressive and unjust circumstances of urban life. Standing upon 4 steps or stages signifying the foundations of health, love, awareness, and wealth, the apprentice of the great goddess in our seal. The appearance of the great goddess in our seal pays homage and respect to the millions of single mothers, wives, grandmothers, and big sisters who cared for, taught, and protected the early hip hop community and assisted us in becoming who we are today. Thanks, Mom, and thanks forever, Mom. Mind over matters. The Divine Mother, the feminine, creative principle within all of humanity, standing next to her divine child, hip hop, symbolizes the maturity of divine ideas in our time. In the past, the Mother of God was shown as a mother cuddling and holding her infant child close to her bosom. She was called the Madonna, and her son was the Christ. Our modern interpretation of this ancient motif depicts Madonna's son as hip hop and now mature enough to stand upon his own 2 feet. The symbol of the great mother standing on the right, the symbol of the great mother standing on the right, raising her son's left hand up in victory over the streets, symbolizes righteousness over corruption. This symbol celebrates the unity of our culture and establishes the support of our parents. The symbol H in the center of the sun celebrates both the divinity of hip hop as well as the life-giving sun, which is mostly composed of hydrogen. The symbol of H in the center of the sun also signifies the union and balance between spirit and science. The 9 stars in the background sky represent hip hop's 9 elements. However, the stars and the sun appearing at the same time symbolizes hip hop's ability to operate in day or night, meaning through good times as well as through bad times, whether events are favorable or unfavorable. Hip hop's divine nature is always at work. This same symbol of the stars and the sun in the sky together also celebrates hip hop's balance between positive and negative forces, even good and evil forces. In addition, such a symbol shows respect to the metaphysical meaning of light as truth, knowledge, wisdom, and awareness. Surrounding our great seal is a wreath of medicinal herbs, symbolizing inspiration and the origins of human awareness. Also within our wreath are rose hips and barley hops, which not only characterize hip hop's plentiful harvest, its prosperity, but also symbolizes the cultivation, care, attention, and worship of the intelligent movement. Rose hips and barley hops symbolize for hip hoppers the seed hips of a new vine or way, hops. As mentioned earlier, hip hop is the seed of a new vine, the new people, the new way. The Temple of Hip Hop simply acknowledges and documents this new way. Over the years building our temple, we've noticed a reoccurrence of the number 9. We've noticed our 9 elements being taught in 9 months, our 18 divine performances, our 18 hip hop Declaration of Peace principles, and the 18 characters of our title, Temple of Hip Hop, 1996, TEMPLEOFHIPHOP 1996, which appears on our sacred seal, 8 + 1 = 9. We also notice the fact that the Gospel of Hip Hop itself was completed in 2009, which not only equals 11, the date Cool DJ Herc played his first party for his sister Cindy, August 11th, 1973, but 2009 is approximately 36 years from 1973, the birth year of hip hop. 3 + 6 = 9. Remaining consistent with the numbers 9 and 18, young teachers are advised to accept apprentices in such manners. When starting your hip hop ministry, teach only up to 9 apprentices who are over the age of 18. This is for young teachers. When you're just starting, the mechanics of teaching 9 apprentices over the age of 18 is doable for when you have to grade tests, take people with you, so on and so on. Plus also, if you're slick enough, you could have an apprentice for each element, breaking MC and graffiti, and so on. Each element can have an apprentice with you studying that element. That group becomes self-contained. If they all master breaking MC and graffiti or DJing, beatboxing, street fashion, street language, street knowledge, and street entrepreneurialism. If there's a master or an apprentice studying to be the master of these disciplines, you have a tight team with you wherever you go and in whatever it is you want to do. So that's why it's 9 apprentices over the age of 18. There's a maturity with over the age of 18, but the more you wait past 21 to 25, that maturity starts to harden, and you can't teach. Now you can't teach, but it becomes more difficult to teach character to people who are older. People who are older. The older you get, anybody will tell you with lessons like this, the older you get, the harder it is to learn because you're stuck in your ways. You don't want to change. You don't want to transform. So you're stuck in your ways. Younger people searching for identity, looking for themselves, and their brain not even wired up yet till about 25, 26. This is who you want to teach. This is who you want to train if they want the lesson. 18-year-olds who are interested in hip hop from this perspective can live a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful life studying hip hop from this perspective. Now let's highlight 34 and 35. We're highlighting 34 and 35. This is critical, okay? We're talking about, and this is our mission. Here's the mission, Temple of Hip Hop, here's the mission, the overall mission. And this is our mission. We intend to preserve hip hop by preserving hip hoppers with both a literal as well as a symbolic knowledge of hip hop's existence beyond music and other entertainment. Come on, highlight all this. We strive to restore and or enhance the hip hopper's wonder and respect for the spiritual life. 35. As a final thought on this subject, on this particular subject, let us remember that everyone who claims an affiliation with the Temple of Hip Hop isn't necessarily a true Temple member. You will know a true Templist not only by her work to preserve and further develop hip hop, but how she treats other people. It is not about how popular or rich or influential a Temple member is. If they are unstudied, inactive, or hateful, they are not serious members of the Temple of Hip Hop. Did you get that? Feel no way if you acting crazy and we revoke your membership because you're being hateful, because you're not trying to cooperate, because you can't be trusted. Let us be clear with it right here. That's why we read in our gospel, so you are clear. Let me hit you with it again. One more again. As a final thought on this matter, as a final thought on this particular subject, let us remember that everyone who claims an affiliation with the Temple of Hip Hop isn't necessarily a true Temple member. Our membership is big. People claim all types of stuff just to be down. You got to know the truth. You will know a true Templist not only by her work to preserve and further develop hip hop. Number one, what is a true Templist? You seeing them doing the work. Wherever they are, in whatever neighborhood, wherever country, they doing the work. They're preserving hip hop by preserving hip hoppers with a knowledge about hip hop. You will know a true Templist not only by her work to preserve and further develop hip hop. Here's now number 2. But how she treats other people. It is not about how popular or rich or influential a Temple member is. If they are unstudied, here's it. You don't know the gospel. You don't know none of the breakdown. You don't know nothing. You unstudied. You're inactive. Inactive. That includes dues, membership dues, or you never pitched in when it was time to get some financial thing started. You never volunteered. You never offered no services. That you're inactive. Or hateful. You hate in a temple? We gonna hate in a temple. Okay, no, this is not, no, it ain't or hateful. They are not, and you notice in the gospel, the word not is in bold, big letters, not serious members of the temple of hip hop. It don't matter what your affiliation is. It don't matter what certificates you get. You could be holding the gospel of hip hop in every certification. If you don't match this criteria right here, you're not a member of our temple. We preach health, love, awareness, and wealth. We preach peace and prosperity. We are not preaching sickness, hatred, ignorance, or poverty. We are not preaching war and poverty. We're not preaching that. We're not preaching immaturity. We're not pointing fingers at people and criticizing and judging people. And we're not doing that. In fact, when your crimes are brought before us, we look to see how you can be rehabilitated through awareness and truth. How can you be rehabilitated? Not, oh, you did that, and oh, it's that, and it's that. Maybe somewhere in in other areas you can do that. If it's a corporation, if it's a court, a judge, a precinct somewhere, I don't know. But with a temple, before God, before our ancestors, preaching the principles of health and love and awareness and wealth. No, we have to practice forgiveness here. We have to practice mercy here. We have to practice higher levels of understanding. We have to practice rehabilitation. Let me get back. Let me just look at that one more time, because this is that piece. This is that piece right here. Right here, I'm back to 14. With God's guidance, we teach healing through awareness, rehabilitation through truth. See, this is what that means. Rehabilitation through truth, peace through purpose. Person agitated, can't get it together. What's your purpose? You worried? Why? What's your purpose? What are you here for? Why are you here? You don't know? Let's talk about that. Let's find the peace through the purpose that you are here for. Everyone's here for a purpose. You may not know what your purpose is. That's why the Temple of Hip Hop is here. That's why the temple is here. Let's discuss purpose, what it is. What is it? You may say, I don't know what my purpose is, because you just don't know what purpose is. You may already be doing your purpose and just unconscious of it. That's why the temple is here. That's why teachers are here. Ministers are here. That's why attuned hip hoppers are here. Hip hop cultural specialists are here. That's why this is going down like this. Come back over here. You're highlighting 34 and 35. Highlight 34 and 35. Let me continue. 36. You cannot claim to be a serious member of the Temple of Hip Hop if you are unstudied and or inactive, or if your personal attitude toward others is contrary to the teachings of our society. If you have truly grasped the teachings of our temple, it will reflect in your attitude toward others. Again, Manly P. Hall, we quote him a lot. Manly P. Hall reminds us that, quote, no one can actually experience internal illumination and not reveal this enlargement of understanding in daily life, end quote. The personal character of the templist reveals not only her level of hip-hop understanding, but also her loyalty to the maintenance of the temple of hip-hop. Did you hear that? Let me hit you with it again. The personal character of the templist reveals not only her level of hip-hop understanding, but also her loyalty. Her character reveals her loyalty to the maintenance of the temple of hip-hop. Even if you got beef with somebody within the temple of hip-hop, you know to yourself that you beefing with another temple member can only destroy the temple. Therefore, we have to work this out. We got to figure this out, because our beef is going to destroy this whole thing. Those that continue to beef, knowing, like internal temple members internally beefing with temple members internally, if you know that, and you know that you got a problem with somebody, somebody got a problem with you, but y'all gonna keep that bubbly within a temple of hip hop, then you are the cancer within the temple. You are the sickness within the temple, both of you. Because one is not smart enough to say to the other one, whatever, you got it, whatever. Or look at it this way, maybe I came off the wrong way, or something that deals with reconciliation, because this is the shining moment. Very few organizations can last long, because not because of their product, not because of the talent that they have, but because people can't get along. This is why people don't want to go back to the office. It ain't just the commute. They sick of the people. You can sit in at home and do the work. Yes, I'm around the people I like. Okay, you go to that office, you got to tolerate all kinds of attitudes, weirdos, people with all types of stupid ideas. And I mean that. You get in there, people's bugging. Okay, you go to school, you got to bug out with people. You can't even go to school without somebody shooting at you. Like, you got to think about that now. You know what I'm saying? All of that is taking people away from even being public and even being social. That's a whole nother level to it altogether. But well, I'm digressing. The point, though, is the point here is that if you know conflict hurts the whole organization, why remain in conflict and say you part of this organization, you part of the Temple of Hip Hop? That's the point. Why say all that? So if you're going to say, no, I am a templist. No, I am a master teacher. I'm learning from the master teacher. I am the Temple of Hip Hop. Now I'm going to start my temple in whatever city I'm in. And I'm going to continue this character in my neighborhood. I'm going to bring forgiveness and charity and discipline and knowledge and overstanding. I'm going to bring that to my neighborhood. That's what it means to bring the temple to the neighborhood. Not the name. It means to bring this character to the neighborhood. To invite people into this character, to this specific approach to hip hop as a divine culture. Well, this is what Manly P. Hall, the personal character of the templist reveals not only her level of hip hop understanding, but also her loyalty to the maintenance of the temple of hip hop. True temple members are committed. True temple members are committed to the maintenance of their temple. Temple members do not seek to exploit the resources of their temple. They seek to enhance and even multiply their temple's resources. Do you hear that? Yes, we are all growing and learning and making, and mistakes will be made. However, there's a big difference between an honest mistake or need, versus a deliberate attempt to use one's temple for one's own selfish gain. Let us be on guard against those who join our society in hopes of only furthering their individual careers. This is not what the Temple of Hip Hop is all about. The Temple of Hip Hop is all about the spiritual and cultural progression of the international hip hop community. That's all. The Temple of Hip Hop is not a money-making venture. It is not a business or a place where you can get your career started. If you are in need of money, before I say that too, but you know that cipher will go down, though. You understand that. You also understand that, as I just said, when we tour the United States and or abroad, this is an apprenticeship moment. And to be honest with you, those that are studying with the Temple of Hip Hop, you have all the right to take advantage of the hip hop by which you're studying. Like I said, it's expensive. You got to put money together to follow me around like that. But once you out here, no, you get the experience. You get the experience. So keep in mind that although this is not where you get your career started at, this is not what this is about. But I say that also careers have gotten started here. And we do launch, as you see. We launch videos. We start all types of stuff jumping off from the temple of hip hop. So just be balanced in this thought as well. No, this is not a money-making venture. No, this is not a business. No, this ain't a place to get your career started. But as an apprentice studying hip hop, this is the place to get your career started if if you understand the whole logic of this. This paragraph 38, points to opportunists. It points straight to the opportunists. You see us getting live and getting large. You see the parking lot cipher getting live. Now you just want to join in. You see the temple rising in some way, and you just want now, yeah, I'm temple of hip hop. I brought the gospel. No, it doesn't work like that. So let's be clear with that as well. This is not, the Temple of Hip Hop is not a money-making venture. It is not a business or a place where you can get your career started. If you are in need of money or any other resource to live, do not let the Temple of Hip Hop stand in your way of securing an income for yourself. Don't let the Temple of Hip Hop stand in the way of achieving your goals and dreams. If your career is in need of attention, remove yourself from the Temple of Hip Hop, from Temple of Hip Hop responsibilities, and give your career the attention it needs. And of course, that's for those who have Temple of Hip Hop responsibilities. If you are an official of the Temple of Hip Hop with some sort of a responsibility that you're expected to rise to and achieve, and at the same time, an opportunity came your way. Your career blew up, some movie deal came through, some recording deal came through, a tour, something. That is welcome. But what you do is remove yourself from your temple responsibilities and go deal with that. Put somebody else in charge, put the responsibilities on somebody else, and you go deal with that. That's internal organization. So there's no conflict of interest. Let's highlight 40 and 41. Let's highlight 40 and 40, paragraph 40 and paragraph 41. Here's why. The point here is that the Temple of Hip Hop is a hip hop preservation society and ministry that does cultural preservation and ministry work. And let us emphasize the word work. Here, serious temple members bring their resources to the Temple of Hip Hop in an effort to complete the work that is to be accomplished. Serious temple members spend their own money, use their own resources, and display their own skills in doing the great work of preserving and further developing hip hop, further developing the hip hop idea. This includes the teachers of our temple. Know this, even though hip hop's teachers and ministers are authorized to take up an offering on behalf of the upkeep of their temples, it must be clearly emphasized here that it is God and God alone who sustains our temples. If we really believe this, then there really is little need to take up an offering from an already struggling people. Our teachers established their temples not with bank loans, grants, and donations, but with their own clear understanding of spiritual law. That's it. Let's highlight 40 and 41. These are the instructions right here. Now, that's not to say that you can't take a grant or a bank loan or the donations of your own apprentices or strike up a tuition for your teachings. That's not to say that, as we say right here, even though hip hop's teachers and ministers are authorized to take up an offering on behalf of the upkeep of their temples, you are authorized to do that. There is nothing wrong with taking up an offering for your work, for your service, for that day. That is an ancient concept, and we don't frown on that. But we take it a step further. It must be clearly emphasized here that it is God and God alone who sustains our temples. If we really believe this, if we believe that only God sustains our temples, then there really is little need to take up an offering from an already struggling people. Our teachers established their temples not with bank loans, grants, and donations, but with their own clear understanding of spiritual law. which, by the way, when you understand spiritual law, those grants, those donations, and other monies, they come quick. They come quick. So understand this lesson here, because this is the wire that we're walking here. Okay? We want to be better than what is out here today. And I say that respectfully. Respectfully. You know, the Bible talks about Yeshua saying, ye must be greater. Your righteousness must your righteousness must go further than the Pharisees and the Sadducees in order to enter the kingdom of heaven. I'm paraphrasing, but that's the gist of it. Your righteousness must be more righteous than the rabbi of his times for you to enter the kingdom of heaven. And we follow that as well today. That's another ancient concept, not monopolized by Christianity, but every spiritual generation knows our spiritual righteousness got to be further than what our parents was. Otherwise, we're not progressing. We're not moving. We're not getting what we're supposed to be getting. Our parents are supposed to be proud of us. Proud of us. Our ancestors are supposed to be proud of us. Not looking at us like we crazy. And that's what's happening now. Unless you with the temple of hip hop. And I mean that. Because the ancestors are looking upon us and saying, that's some good shit you got there. Right there. They know it. And they're guiding us along. And they're helping us. And they're helping us to do what we got to do. You don't think Tupac sees this right now? Biggie, Big L, Eazy-E, Scott LaRock, Pun? Come on, Biz. These people, we knew them. Okay, so this is not like they gone. No, they went to another place. And they can see clearly now what I'm talking about. And they can see clearly what others were talking about as well. And they can see the temple of hip hop. They can see the gospel of hip hop. They're discussing it right now in another dimension, saying, yo, man, that's Chris right there doing his thing. Yo, let's help him. and go and do. And they're helping out right now. They're changing minds right now in their own prospective areas. They are talking to their people about what we're dealing with right here, because they're on the other side now. They're on the other side. And what are we talking about? The other side. What are we dealing with? The other side. What are we teaching? The principles of the other side. Not these material, flesh-driven principles, but these spiritually rational, logical principles. Ones that really help you in your life. So highlight 40 and 41. Here now 42. And then we're going to catch another one. Here now 42. The traditions of other temples and churches may require them to take up an offering, and we are obliged to respect such traditions. But as for the temple of hip hop, we use the mastery of our hip hop elements to finance the maintenance of our temple. That's it. We work for hours. We rap, we break, we do graffiti art, we sell that to maintain our culture. Mastery of our hip hop elements to finance the maintenance of our temple. We come to our people with the resources we and they need to focus upon the lessons we've come to teach. Yes, there is something to be said about the law of give and receive and the importance of a congregation supporting their man or woman of God. That's important. But temple members should not be teaching the gospel of hip hop until they have mastered its principles, and one of its principles is wealth, another is charity, another is love. In this case, care. This is how we approach our people in our temples. Now, I need you to highlight that. In fact, what we're now going to do is we're highlighting from 40 to 43. You're highlighting 43 as well. So what you've highlighted is 40, 41, 42, and 43. Here now is 43. The Temple of Hip Hop serves as a restoration to the ancient ideas regarding life and spiritual living. Our ultimate aim is to restore the truth to our people. However, we use the term our people here because not everyone is ready to embrace the truth. Slavery has become very comfortable in my time, while it is freedom that is becoming more and more difficult to maintain in my time. The truth is that we can create our own reality. We can recreate ourselves. This is not only the truth, this is also the ultimate state of freedom. Now, what I want to do here too is, and make sure you highlight that 40, 41, 42, and I just read 43. But if you go back to page 641, just want you to look at page 641 real quick. Okay, on page 641, paragraph 216. Okay, this is paragraph 216, and this last paragraph 43 goes together. This one here about what the temple of hip hop is slavery becoming this, and the truth is that we can create our own reality, especially this last part right here. The truth is that we can create our own reality. We can recreate ourselves. This is not the only. This is not only the truth. It is also the ultimate state of freedom, and you're going to see that repeated throughout the gospel. The ultimate state of freedom is to be able to create yourself. And this is an enlightenment that I came to early on, and it has worked for me crazy to create yourself, to make decisions about yourself, and then move into the decision. You make yourself. You literally make yourself. So I want you to connect this last part of this. In fact, go ahead and underline it. This part that says the truth is that we can create our own reality. We can recreate ourselves. This is not only the truth, it is also the ultimate state of freedom. Now go back to page 641, and you could put a star next to paragraph 216 because they connect. Self-creation is freedom. In fact, self-creation is the ultimate state of freedom. If you can become whatever you desire, then slavery, lost history, sickness, ignorance, and poverty are all the choices of an uninformed mind or a mind not informed. Continuing, such a freedom begins with the way in which we perceive ourselves. Normally, a person's or a people's race and or ethnicity would not matter in a truly spiritual conversation. But when politically motivated deceptions and distortions of the truth make their way into the common understanding of spiritual reality, it is the duty and responsibility of every truth seeker to openly correct such deception and replace such lies with truth. This is why we use the term our people, meaning those who are ready to hear the truth, period. Ain't no color with this, ain't no ethnicity, ain't no nothing, okay? Are you ready to hear the truth? Does the truth offend you? Can you get wild with it? I mean, that's it. Are you ready to hear the truth? Our people, those who are ready to hear the truth. As an example, in my time, the image of the white Jesus with blue eyes and long blonde hair is known by every biblical scholar to be historically inaccurate. Yet, such an image remains the standard depiction of Jesus' physical image. And why is that? Why are some Christians so reluctant to embrace the fact that Jesus, as well as Moses, King Solomon, King David, Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel, and most of the leading characters of the Bible was indeed dark-skinned? Why is that so hard? Like that's the argument, though. This is the argument now. And let me also make a correction here. Let's look. This part here says Abel. Most of the leading characters of the Bible. This is wrong. It was not was indeed dark-skinned. It's were, because we're speaking about multiple people here. It would be was if I was talking about one person, but I'm talking about multiple people. So the correction is were. So just remember that the error is was. It says why are some Christians so reluctant to embrace the fact that Jesus, as well as Moses, King Solomon, King David, Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel, and most of the leading characters of the Bible were indeed dark-skinned? Put that there as error. Dark skin. What difference does it really make whether any biblical character was black, white, or other? And that's in the gospel. Okay, what difference does it really make? Because spirituality doesn't have nothing to do with nobody color. Okay, this is about character. Okay, so we ask right at the top, what difference does it really make whether any biblical character was black, white, or other? As Dr. Henry Lewis Clark advises. I think the Christianity that black ministers espouse is going to have to be remade to suit our needs, the needs of our people. Mr. Clark continues, I believe that we are capable of creating a religion of a new humanity. And here Dr. Clark is talking about black people when he says our people. But this is the piece. This is where the gospel starts. This is where we start this. And I'm only going to read a little bit of this because it is it's part of another lesson. And I stopped the readings within lessons. This is going into another lesson about that how racism and religion got our mind going. And we say all the time how we're not affected. Oh, I'm spiritual, I'm this and that. And at the Temple of Hip Hop, we have a spiritual test to see if you really spiritual. And the spiritual test is, can you put a picture of the white Jesus, the classic picture of the white, blue-eyed, blonde-haired Jesus on the wall, and can you throw darts at it? Can you use it as target practice? And I say this respectfully. I am not disrespecting anybody's religion here. And I'll further this out as I go further. But look at it. Can you put a picture of Jesus on the wall and throw darts at it? Try to get the nose. No, try to get the forehead. If you get the forehead, you get 100 points. Most people cannot rip that picture in half. They cannot throw a dart at that picture. They cannot spill stuff on it. They revere the picture. This is mental slavery because we all know Jesus did not look like that. Whoever that is in that picture is not Jesus the Christ. It is not Yeshua. It is not the person in that book called the Holy Bible. We know this. We know it. Archaeologists know it. Paleoanthropologists know it. Theologians know it. Everybody knows it. Historians know it. But that white Jesus did not come off the wall yet. This is the piece. This right here is the piece. I ain't got nothing wrong with the white Jesus. I ain't got nothing against the white Jesus. If that's what you need to see Christ as, so be it. And a matter of fact, if you notice, when you travel like I do, you see Jesus in everybody's culture. You go to Africa, Jesus is black. And that's what, although some Africans do have that white Jesus, I ain't gonna front. They got the white Jesus up in Africa, okay? But most Africans already know what time it is. And they got a black Jesus up there. But you go to Europe, Jesus is white. As a matter of fact, you go to Germany, Jesus is German. You go to Spain, Jesus is Spanish and has Spanish features, German stereotypical features. England, English stereotypical features. France, stereotypical features and culture with all of these as well. Jesus, you go to Indonesia, Jesus looks Asian. You go to Thailand and Japan, Jesus is looking more Asian over there, looking more Buddha-like. You go to anywhere you go, whoever has been Christianized has made Jesus to look like their culture and themselves. So we will put that disclaimer on it. I'm speaking from an American point of view, where the white Jesus kind of reigns around here. This is what they about, okay, here in America, the white Jesus. And we know that is not the image of now. How spiritual can we really be? And this is all I'm saying. This is what I mean about rationale, logic, truth, and evidence. If we know that's a fake image, why we still there? Why you can't throw a dart at it? It's a fake image. You can't throw a dart at it. Let's go further with that psychology. Dr. Martin Luther King's picture on the wall. Can you throw a dart at it? Some people could throw a dart at Dr. King's picture quicker than you could throw it at the white Jesus. Marcus Garvey picture on the wall. Can you throw a dart? Do you revere that picture? Can you rip the picture of Dr. King? Now, some people can't do that either. Those who revere the picture. Dr. King by the I Have a Dream speech. Can you actually deface that? Now, here's the point. If you could deface it, you're saying you're disrespecting this picture. But what you're really saying is, I'm disrespecting Dr. King. I'm disrespecting the legacy of Dr. King if I do this. No, you're not. That's all in your mind. Dr. King don't give a fuck what you do for his picture. Okay? Care less. Okay? It's a picture. Okay? That's a picture of KRS-ONE on the wall. Can you throw a dart at it? I know mad dudes be like, oh yeah, I got a bunch of fucking darts. You know, but here's the point, is that if you revered the picture, you couldn't throw dart at the KRS picture. You couldn't rip the KRS poster in half. But why not? KRS don't care whether you rip his poster in half or that. You're not doing nothing to KRS. You did nothing. It's a poster. It's a picture. You can do whatever you want with a poster and a picture. But how do you feel about this in your own mind? How spiritual are you really? How free is your mind from your grade school indoctrination? That's what I should say. And urban inner city spirituality questions that. This is urban, this is inner city spirituality. This is not forest and Himalayan mountain and somewhere in the desert. No, this is right here on 125th Street and Lenox Avenue. This is right here. Okay, this is Flatbush and Church Avenue. This is the Grand Concourse and 149th Street. That's what we at right here, okay? What are you saying? What are you saying spiritually? And this is why none of these religions have anything to say to a large percentage of our people out here walking around blind with no idea of their spiritual nature. You know how many people, I can't even walk down the street, okay? People coming up to me, rock star, rock star, rock star. And I was giving some haphazard lecture somewhere. I gave that same lecture 100 times before, but nobody recorded it or whatever. Somebody recorded the lecture, threw it up online. And now the whole world is like, wait a minute. I do have an inner me. Wow. What, these major churches could not say, they know that. They know exactly what I just said. What? But they don't, nothing. Because we're caught up in this clique, in this group, in this gang. And if you ain't with my clique, I don't give you nothing. And I don't show you nothing. And you ain't with me. God, universal God. God, omnipotent God. God, omniscient God. God everywhere. Where is God not? God everywhere, except for you. Except for y'all. Y'all can't come. There's no God for you. God for everybody in the world, except hip hop, right? Well, that's why we wrote our gospel. I'm coming to the end of this read right now because I'm going into a different lesson and I'm going to chop this off for next week's lesson. But I want to make this point clear. I want to make this point clear. True Christians should pay very close attention to this analysis. In no way, I'm reading this again. In no way can we ever discredit, demean, or disrespect the Christian faith. Such is not the character. Oh, this is what this is. I'm sorry. Let me read Dr. Clark again. Paragraph 46. As Dr. Henry Lewis Clark advised, I think the Christianity that Black ministers espouse is going to have to be remade to suit our needs, the needs of our people. Mr. Clark continues, I believe that we are capable of creating a religion of a new humanity, end quote. Now, he was talking about black people creating a religion of a new humanity, because when you listen to the whole lecture, it goes into the fact that all religion really comes out of Africa. The concept of deity comes out of Africa. This talks about black people having a certain responsibility to uphold their own ancestral ideas. Whether you believe in God or not is irrelevant. God is an African idea. Therefore, if you have the character of the Africans that thought up the God idea, it is within your heritage. It is your heritage to keep the God idea alive. And the God idea was never external to yourself. The God idea was always you. It was always your ancestors. It's when we get European imperialism, colonialism, and slavery that God leaves you and enters into this white Jesus and all these buildings and crosses and all this stuff. And that's not even where God could never be in that. God is within you. God is is behind reality itself. The force that makes it all possible. You are connected to that force, and you have a connection right now. And that was my whole lecture, with having eyes that see without these eyes, and a mouth that speaks without this mouth, and ears to hear that voice without these ears. You have an inner being, and that being is in a place. And you can manipulate your reality by going into this being and speaking in that place. You could then change this outer physical reality. It's a higher level thinking, and some can't get it, but hopefully through these teachings you will. So true Christians should pay very close attention to this analysis. True Christians, listening to me now, should pay very close attention to this analysis. In no way can we ever discredit, demean, or disrespect the Christian faith. Such is not the character of an attuned hip-hop. However, the seeking and revealing of truth is exactly the character of an attuned hip-hopper. And because so many hip-hoppers were enslaved, freed, and raised within the Christian tradition, it is imperative that we question our relationship with Christianity and our roles as spiritual beings within it. Many of us hip-hoppers began our spiritual journey within the Christian tradition. Maybe it was our own African ancestors in an effort to civilize and spiritualize early Europeans who created the white Jesus, so that Europeans would accept the concept of the Christ. Maybe Jesus himself or Mary ordered this racial change because his own people had rejected the Christ. Maybe all of this had to do with the slave trade and the creation of both the slave and the slaveholder. Clearly, such an image seems to have served as a form of population control in Christian Europe and early America, meaning that it would have been more acceptable to average Europeans to enslave an unholy, savage, and soulless race of people than to do the same to God's chosen people. Only evil would consider enslaving God's chosen people and stealing their sacred heritage and birthright for themselves. Only a jealous, envious, deceitful mind would go to such lengths as to conceal the truth from so many people for so long. But equally, only a disobedient, ignorant, fearful people living in blatant denial would go along with such an inaccuracy for so long. Look at this. Sometimes the revelation of evil is even more staggering than the revelation of truth. Just like today, Iraq as well as Iran are both considered to be the actual places where many of the biblical stories and its characters originate. Yet, this is the very region that Christian America has declared war upon. How hypocritical can you be? As a Christian nation, isn't this self-destruction? Truly, in history, we were the humans and they were the animals. And this is what we have had taken from us, our humanity. America boasts of its Christian values and heritage and holds the Bible as its highest level of moral, as well as its higher level of morality, as well as its connection to God. Yet, the American government in my present time is bombing the very region the Bible was written in, killing the people of that region. And see, this also documents the time that this is being written in. This is all through the 90s. This is clearly after 1994, but 95, 6, they still out there bombing people. Okay, you know, yet the American government in my present time is bombing the very region the Bible was written in, killing the people of that region, and has already robbed and enslaved the Bible's African descendants. Again, how hypocritical can you be? And again, is this not self-destruction? This is just rational thinking. However, the real question is, how long are we hip-hoppers supposed to put our precious faith into such corrupt religious practices? How long will we empower our own oppression and ultimately our own demise? It seems like our whole spiritual reality originated amongst the plans for our enslavement. This is why the Temple of Hip Hop exists. It is time that we free ourselves and rediscover our own relationship with God. We now know that everyone, including ourselves, was deceived, and that we were the true humans and they were the true animals. We know this today, but what shall we do about it? It seems that not only were our lands and physical resources stolen from us, our actual souls were also stolen. Try to understand this. Slaves in the United States were created and bred to be slaves. It seems that a certain part of the African population was set aside and bred for slavery, which included the total breakdown and rebuilding of the African mind and soul. And it is this group that influences the rest of us today. As I research this observation, I find that the depth of our losses are more staggering than what we have ever imagined. Forget about the theft of our land, minerals, precious materials, stones, plants, oil, knowledge, people, etc., that still goes on today. Forget about all of that. The real tragedy here is that our very souls were taken from us or blocked from our indefinite use. The very force that animates our being has been stolen from us and put to use in the building of our own prisons. The very force that protects and preserves our natural resources, our souls, has either been stolen from us or switched off. Either way, we have been blinded to ourselves. We cannot see ourselves, and so we have no direction. We are forced to be led and guided as opposed to being those who lead and guide. And this goes for everyone who chooses to buy into the convenience of slavery over the birthright of freedom. This, I believe, is the center of the world's problems. It is the fact that the original human beings, the first humans who established civilization, the true queens and kings, the true gods and goddesses, God's originally chosen people, regardless of race or ethnicity, have forgotten who they are. And as a result, the whole world suffers because everything is out of order, everything is out of place, everything is upside down. The true kings are slaves, and the true slaves are kings. This is why the world's cities are in such turmoil. We have forgotten our divinity and the responsibilities that come with such divinity. And this analysis is not only pointing to the injustice of such a situation, this analysis points more toward the imbalance of today's human order and who is supposed to be doing what. I believe that the world is the way it is because the true kings have been enslaved and murdered by jealous and greedy slaves. But more importantly, because of our own internal conflicts, we have given up our birthright and heritage. Because of our own lack of respect for our own divine history and leadership, we have handed our very soul force over to our enemies, and we continue to do the same today. Our world is the way it is because we have forgotten who we are. Our ignorance creates the world that we are experiencing. Our own immaturity and disunity have led, has led. Our own immaturity and disunity have led to our own enslavement. Let me catch that, has led. Right. Our own immaturity and disunity has led, not have led. Our, our own immaturity and disunity has led to our own enslavement, our own enslavement. And the bottom line here is that our legacy, and the bottom line here is that our legacy has been stolen from us and we have been blinded to our own divinity. As a result, we remain slaves, the only condition fit for human beings who know not themselves and break their own laws. This is it. This is the center of slavery and how you become enslavable. You breaking your own laws and you don't even know. Matter of fact, you don't know who you are, so you're breaking your own laws. You're stepping on your glasses. You're stepping on your contact lenses. You're tripping over yourself. Don't know who you are, so you breaking your own laws. Speaking specifically to Black people now, speaking specifically to you. Don't know who you are, so you breaking your own laws. Look at this. Like the 10 Commandments, for example, which originated in Africa. Again, like the 10 Commandments, for example, which originated in Africa. These are our principles, Black people, Africans. These are our principles. This is what we gave to the world. Highlight this. I want you to highlight the whole 59. Highlight all of 59. Hold up, wait a minute, hold up. Yeah, all of 59. Let's go through it. Actually, it's the 10 Commandments. Like the 10 Commandments, for example, which originated in Africa, these are our principles. This is what we gave to the world. Ponder that for a minute. As an African, as a Black person with a character of God, this is your heritage here. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days might be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth. Thou shalt not kill, shalt not kill. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. That was the 10 Commandments. These are our principles, and because we continue even to this day to break these laws, our laws, we suffer as an African people in America. Highlight that. Highlight that. That is the truth. Anybody could teach that. White folk could teach this. Asians could teach this. Black folk, Native American, Aboriginal, it don't matter. Anybody talking to a Black crowd. White folk talking to a Black crowd. Tell them this. White man, white woman talking to young Black people, or just Black people in general, African Americans. Say, listen, I'd like to pull up the gospel of hip hop and read you this piece right here. You really want to know why the problems? Why you people, that's some racist shit out of that. But if you say, because if you say, look, I'm not white, say I'm not Black. So I'm talking about the Black experience and I'm not Black, okay? You say, the problem with your group is this. The 10 Commandments come out of Africa and you running around killing, stealing, robbing, talking about adultery is good on the TV. I know you got a man, but I'm still looking at you anyway. What? Everybody else can play that game. Their laws don't come out. Their laws never said, that this wasn't it. You African. The 10 Commandments come out of Africa. Moses was an African. Some even say Cushite because he was born, come on. Now we want to complain. Talk about they're taking voting rights? Democrat, Republican? They took your soul. What's more important here? Well, I'm not going to put it that way, but I need to put some emphasis on your soul over everything else that black folk are talking about is important. They took your soul. You can't even stop lying, bearing false witness, slandering your brothers and sisters at every turn. But your heritage, created the laws that people call the laws of God. And we can't seem to rise to this, a measly 10 commandments. We can't even rise to that. That also shows us how far we are away from our ancestors. Because remember, these are 10 commandments taken from the Egyptian 42 negative confessions, or 42 confessions, or whatever. There's all types of titles to it. But this is taken from 42. I have not stolen today. I have not lied today. That's how the original went. I have not stolen. I have not lied. And so on. And I should read it. No, let me read it into history. On the wall there, I have the 42 confessions on the wall there. I got it on one of my walls in my library. I'll take it off the wall. You see it, right? Yeah, so I got it. While I'm on the 10 Commandments here real quick, I did mention the 42 confessions out of Egypt, and that's where this comes from. All scholars know that as well. But I'm showing how far away we've gotten, or how far away some people have gotten from the character of their ancestors. Okay, thank you. I have this one I got. You can see it. 42 Principles of Ma'at. Okay, and so it starts off with, I have not done iniquity. I have not done violence. I have not stolen. I have done no murder or harm. I have not stolen food. I have not swindled offerings. I have not acted deceitfully. I have not told lies. That this is the original. And again, let me back up on this word original. Ain't nothing original about this. I'm speaking English, and this is some bullshit, okay? But the translation, which comes down through eternity to our times, is this. And what we have translated here is the character which did come through the times, come through the ages, is the character. Notice how the original Bible verse is, thou shalt not make unto thee a graven, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not. So you have one group of people that have to be commanded, don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other. And you have another group of people that proclaims that they have not done this. You proclaim this to yourself when you wake up in the morning. You proclaim this to yourself when you go to bed at night. This is your character. This is who you are. But when you're another group of people, even adverse to this group, as the Bible teaches, these Moses' followers were actually against the Egyptian government. The Egyptian government, they said, was slaving them. The Egyptian government says there was no slavery during that time, or during no time. And the concept of a slave is nowhere near what we think of today with American transatlantic slavery. That's not what a slave was in ancient Egypt. The word slave being applied to people in ancient Egypt is even some other racist nonsense that the concept didn't even exist. The people, Slavs, didn't even exist yet. So there's no way you could call anybody in ancient Egypt a slave. These were skilled laborers that were working. And obviously these people who were followers of Moses didn't like the work that they were doing. And, criticized it as being whatever it was, slavery and everything else. And so on. But this is you'll see the difference in character. I have not committed adultery. I have not caused anyone to shed tears. I have not committed fornication. I have not cursed. I have not laid waste to the plowland. I have not stolen anyone's land. Like, imagine that. I have not stolen anyone's land. That's not in there. They don't want to hear that part. Okay, but that was part of the original confession. Okay, that was part of the original confessions. And it's good to go over these. It's good to go over these because if you can rise to this character, wonderful things do happen in your life. You are protected. You are safe. You rise to the level of the gods and commune with the gods. You learn how to do that. And it's not a language, it's a lifestyle. And so just wanted to point that out. I'm not reading everything. I'm not reading, you can look it up. It's called the 42 Principles of Ma'at. At least that's what this poster is. The 42 Principles of Ma'at. But it's from this, and it's Pert M. Heru, Book of Coming Forth by Day and Night. This is what you say. This is what you say to get into the other side. When you died, you met, I think, Tahuti or Chahuti, the dog god with the dog head. No, wait a minute. Well, you did meet the dog with the dog with the god, the god with the dog head, and they weighed your heart. They weighed your heart, and if your heart was heavier than this feather, the two things had a feather on one side, your heart on the other, and your heart was supposed to be weighed lighter than a feather. The feather was supposed to go down, and your heart was supposed to go up, and you had entrance into immortality.
It's Anubis.
Anubis, I knew it was Anubis, the dog-headed god that sees you at the death at your moment of death, as you
yes, indeed.
go to the gate, and they sitting there weighing hearts.
Mm-hmm.
So you're supposed to say this. I have not done iniquity. I have not done violence. I have not stolen. I have not done it. And look at the difference between communities. And these are both Black people, too, by the way. These are two different Black communities, similar to what you got with hip hop today. Some of us are preaching this, and others are preaching that. Look at this. So you have one person says, I have not done any of these things. And that's my hymn or my prayer to the gods. And you can see, I am confirming, I have not lied. I have not taken land. I have not done this and that. But there's another community that's doing all of that. And their leader has to come and tell them, don't do this. You're going against the law of our God. And when you read the Bible, you notice that to go against the Ten Commandments, it was a death penalty. Moses killed mad people, mad Jews he killed, okay, to get his thing started. People violating the laws and all of that. There's mad killing going on, and God was mad, okay? God used to come and talk to Moses and run around talking about, I want to kill these people and kill off these people. Moses was like, no, God, don't kill these people. Go read Exodus. Don't look at the movie. Read the book. Much more fascinating than the movie. But that's the Ten Commandments, y'all. That's the Ten Commandments. And the gospel totes the Ten Commandments because we're transferring knowledge from one generation to another as well. And they should see that. There's more to it, with the Ten Commandments. This is not all of our people either. But if you can't even follow the Ten Commandments, it was taken out of 42. Like how are you even supposed to relate to the mind or to the character of somebody who can say these 42 confessions and say, I have done none of this? And how can you relate to that mind when we can't even get past 10 of these 42? They snatched off 10 and said, this is the 10 commandments. Let's try to get this together. We can't even do this. So imagine how far in intelligence you are from your real ancestors. Intelligence is not measured by the knowledge in the book. It's measured by your character, what you understand. So imagine a being that understands, whose character can say 42 different principles and say that they have not even, they're not part of none of that. And then you have another kind of character that has to be told to stop stealing, told to stop killing, told to stop adultery, told to stop taking land and coveting people's ox and ass and all of this stuff. So you can see what type of community this was and what type of community that was. You can always judge the community by what the sage has to teach the community. Buddha had to come and teach his people against suffering. His whole ministry was about suffering. Why? Because his people were suffering. You know, this is what it was. So let's continue. I want you to highlight 59, the whole of 59. It's the 10 Commandments. And this is our last paragraph for today's read, 60. And we're just reading it. Imagine if we actually obeyed our own 10 commandments, we would not be an oppressed people. Let me hit you with it again. Imagine if we really obeyed our own 10 commandments, we would not be an oppressed people. Just obeying the 10 commandments alone, we would not be in the situation we in. Black people, I'm speaking to African Americans, you would not be in the situation you're in if you would just follow the 10 commandments. No way around that. I'm not preaching Christianity. I'm not preaching Judaism, which is actually what it is. I'm not preaching none of that. I'm just logic, truth, evidence, whatever. You can see it. That's it. That's right here. Right here. There's nothing more to it. Imagine if we actually obeyed our own 10 commandments. We would not be an oppressed people. If we could just obey, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, and thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. If we just obeyed these 4 commandments, we would be stronger than those who stole these principles from us. You're not hearing me. Because of such blindness, we act out the results of being ignorant of ourselves. And this is the crime. This is the crime. Everything we have created, we now fight against, believing that it is foreign and destructive to us, when in fact, most of what we are protesting and ignoring is our own inventions, discoveries, and heritage. Everything that our ancestors have established for us, we have squandered and misused in utter blindness, rebellion, and ignorance. And we are doing the same thing today with hip hop. This is why we are where we are today, period. That's part of that whole lesson, okay? That's one whole lesson. We're going to stop here and continue next week with 61. We're starting at paragraph 61, because that's now going to get into this whole other lesson about the activism of God's people, the activism of God's people. And also, we're going to dwell a little bit longer on this African piece, just logic, straight up and down logic. Like I said, we're looking at Christianity, we're looking at Judeo-Christian theology because of its influence on early hip-hoppers. All the founders were Christian. or adhere to some sort of Christian denomination. And most of hip hop, is Christian. Yes, there's a strong Muslim, uh, um, there's a strong Muslim influence on hip hop, throughout hip hop. But the dominant religion, because of the African American foundation of hip hop, Christianity is what we get to look at a little more intact. African Americans have taken advantage of all of the religions, really, and within hip hop too. But the dominant thought within hip hop at this time is the Judeo-Christian thought, with Islam in tow. So we look first at the Judeo-Christian thought and wind up at Islam at some point. But Islam is not as traditional in the African American life as Christianity is, as gospel music is, as Jesus is, and the Black church and all of that. So we start here with Judeo-Christian because we're talking about the temple of hip hop. We're making distinctions in what our temple represents versus what everybody else is representing. We're making distinctions as to what we teach versus what everybody else is teaching. We're not better, we're not worse. We're just different. We're something over here that has not yet been discussed, like that white Jesus. That's not a big discussion in spiritual circles. Why? Because we're not discussing it. So let's discuss it to see how spiritual we all are. We can't play games with this. Let's be real about our spirituality. Let's be real about it. And as you notice, we are critiquing everyone. It's a critical thinking exercise. We're critiquing Black folks and their conduct. We're critiquing white folks and their conduct. Native Americans and Asians and their conduct. Aborigines and others and so on. We're critiquing everybody's conduct because God is no respecter of a race and ethnicity, culture, class, gender. Sorry. The mind of God, the mind, at least the mind we are teaching here, I should put that disclaimer on it. What we are teaching here is outside of any physical appearance or whatever you can gain in the world physically. This is about your internal character, your being, your being. This is about how you feel as well. Do you have control of your emotions? How do you, come on. That's what this is about. And so I thank you for another week, another read. We do this every Sunday, 12 o'clock. We do this every Sunday, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'm here in Atlanta, in the United States. And this is how we get down. It's the Temple of Hip Hop. As I just read, the Temple of Hip Hop is a hip hop ministry, archive, school, and society. A hip hop preservation ministry, archive, school, and society. Started in 1996. We believe that rap is something you do while hip hop is something you live. We believe that the preservation of hip hop starts with the preservation of hip hoppers, teaching hip hoppers about the divinity of hip hop. We come with logic and truth, y'all, nothing else. We're not trying to hype it. We ain't trying to play it down, downplay it either. We're trying to give you the truth. We're trying to give you the truth as to what it is, how we experienced it. We know that this works, and that's what we're teaching. That's the gospel of hip hop. As we normally do traditionally, I usually close out. We went over a little bit. We might be on time. We're coming up on 3:30. 3 hours, 30 minutes. Usually, we let Sun One go out. I have a film that I'm gonna play. I don't know if that film is ready. We had some trouble hitting it at the beginning, which is why we started 20 minutes late. I was gonna play it at the beginning. I don't know if we're able to play it or not. If not, then this is going to be the end of our read. If we could play the film, then enjoy the film. It's the Temple of Hip Hop's bio. Sun One, if you're there, let me see if
yeah, it should be fine.
It should be fine now. So let's go ahead do that. I mean, if you want to take it out, some closing remarks on this week's lesson, and then we go straight into the film. Take it over from here.
No doubt. Thank you, teacher. So peace and much love to all of you. Of course, I have stuff to say. I always have stuff to say. I wasn't expecting to necessarily, but no, this is this overstanding is extremely important, especially today's lesson, which teacher went through regarding the character of a templarist, essentially, an attuned hip hopper, a minister, a hip hop cultural specialist, all affiliations of the Temple of Hip Hop, which comes at the or the full breakdown, as I'm sure many of you have checked out, is at the end of this overstanding. And so we'll be going over that within the next couple of weeks. I just want to suggest to everybody that this is how our teachers spoke of endurance and enduring. How does, and I'll take it directly to the Temple of Hip Hop, which is how does a temple member actually endure? How does one remain a member of the Temple of Hip Hop, even for a lifetime? And what it is you concentrate on developing this character. As teacher pointed out, it's the character of the divine performance. And normally the Temple of Hip Hop or our teaching is such in real time that most things will be revealed eventually through interaction with you. So when you come get on a tour or even take up the apprenticeship and you're around, we learn each other, and we learn really what it is. Certain little things or that seem to be little happen throughout this time, and normally there's somebody around. Of course, there are things that happen to you personally while you're by yourself in your own time. But no, the times when you're with the Temple of Hip Hop, the universal classroom gets enacted, and it's really God doing the testing more than anything else. And those of us who have been committed, who have remained committed, and take the Temple of Hip Hop seriously, we're normally there to just watch and see what it is. But the whole thing of, especially the getting along with each other, is a huge part. Or as teacher said, that's the destruction of a temple, is when its members can't actually get along, or when a certain member's character does not fit, does not match. And then that would really just make them a fraud, and why ever they are around is normally one of those selfish reasons or purposeful reasons that no, they have other intentions on their mind as to why they've actually come to be a part of the Temple of Hip Hop. And you would think that nobody would. Why would you waste your life just to be next to SIMONE, or just to be next to KRS-ONE or PASCAL-ONE or Minister G. Simone? Just to be there, you would waste precious time out of your life? You would think, nah, nobody would do that. But yes, they would, and yes, they have, and yes, they do. And so it's really just to know that we're fully aware of this, and like this is a lot of this is personal or personally. I could say, whereas as teacher was talking about maturity of getting better, I can clearly see I've gotten better through just this read of the Gospel of Hip Hop, and I've read the Gospel of Hip Hop several times, and I am literally getting better as a as I could go down that list of the 42 confessions. I could do that and be like, nah, no, I'm rocking these. Um, Now, if I got to sit with Anubis at the end and really have to go over the whole life, that might be an issue. but today, I can say, no, for real. And to me, that's a big part of what the Temple of Hip Hop is about, and that's what I want to share with others. That's what I want to help other people come to the self-realization of as well. But again, we can't make anybody come to the realization. This has to be something that they personally want for themselves. You can't make anybody really technically do anything. So it is on you. Um, and that's where or hip hop is literally in your hands in that sense. Um, I did want to touch on. I'll probably teach about this in a future lesson, but seeing as it kind of got brought over here um, into this, and teacher had mentioned talking about angels a couple lessons back, and I ended up coming on some research. First of all, and I want you to do independent research and just look up when the first angels were created and the depiction of the way that we believe them today with wings and this, that, and the third. You'll find it's going to be somewhere around the 1800s of when that became popularized. This is literally a new world that we're living in. It's not the world that existed where we had our principles and lived in such manners. But also in a totally unrelated research, but that came at the same time, I found that you should also know that not only is God an invention of Africans in Africa, but also so is the soul. Soul is literally an African invention or an African observance or what our ancestors became aware of that this soul exists. But a way that they depicted the soul once the soul leaves, now there are also several parts to the soul, but when the soul leaves, it's depicted as a head with wings. And now my logical explanation for that is the fact of right or the soul travels, and so it's a way of depicting its traveling and movement is to depict it with wings to show that it's unbound by or just earthly walking and whatnot. So that's the way I took it. And again, you can look all of this up. And again, we're dealing with truths here, and hopefully, those in the Temple of Hip Hop are mature enough to get beyond what they or what's normally taught of spirituality, where we're trying to enhance our spirituality to get to become the most spiritual that we can possibly humanly be. and uh, and there are certain things that we have to deal with because this spirituality has become a an industry in and of itself. And again, your family and what they know of things, all of this is at stake. Whether you have children, um, even your parents, but again, they might be a little harder to get to change their way. As teacher spoke about 25 years of age and why we teach our apprentices hopefully between 18 and 25, at least to start, that know that there's some things that we know, and also or there are facts that exist that everybody has literally in the palm of their hand, or in their cell phone, in their computer. This knowledge is out here, and so we're not. Again, it's for our people, though. It's for our people. I don't. I'm not so concerned that the Christian knows that. I'm concerned that hip hoppers know that, because I know, again, like teacher said, a lot of hip hoppers came up from Christianity first, myself included. This being the case, it's especially coming to the end of the gospel of hip hop. It's we need to get clear as far as the difference of what we have to offer and teach and to learn. Because again, after the teacher reads the gospel of hip hop, he's going to be bringing you more teachings, not from the gospel of hip hop, but come in the same vein of the gospel of hip hop, where it's hold on, let me get back to it. Oh, wait a minute, how did I get all the way here? It's the same vein of, with God's guidance, we teach healing through awareness, rehabilitation through truth, and peace through purpose. Hey. Yeah, that's wild. But this is what it is. This is what we do. This is the temple of hip hop, and you have to be ready. You have to come with an empty cup. You can't come with everything. You should come with what you know. And again, and this is how we build together. You speak what you know. Brother speaks what he knows. Sister speaks what she knows. And together we weigh the facts and the truths versus also other stuff that it's good to know what is improvable, what can't be proved. And if you can't prove it, then odds 10 to 1 it's not the truth. Because, or like teacher said, the truth is normally comes with actual evidence. People can say a whole bunch. It can speak, sound nice, sound elegant, eloquent, all of the above, but with no real evidence. And this is the problem. It's like propaganda, really. Just because a person can say something, and the way that they say it, and this, that, and the third, you're done, or they got you. This is how I'll just say scammers have gotten along for a very long time, because they could do that. They never really actually bring you any facts, or don't fully show you what it is that is the truth, or there's no backup. And so I'm trying not to, I don't want to really ramble. Again, we'll get deeper into that within the next couple of years, or there'll be many things. The Temple of Hip Hop is nowhere in any way, shape, form, or fashion ever going to stop. So again, I hope you all are taking care of yourselves. I hope your hearts are warm, and don't let the world depress you. Don't let the world depress you. Don't let your circumstances, or the circumstances of your life, don't let them depress you. Think positive. Use positive affirmations. You have the power to speak your reality into existence and rearrange your environment with the intentions of your soul and your heart. So do your best with however you feel that takes place. Do that and do that more, and live in the confidence that God does love you all the time. Peace and much love. I am Minister SIMONE. The Temple of Hip Hop is a hip hop ministry, well, hip hop preservation ministry, archive, school, and society. Our unique approach to hip hop is the fact that we believe in order to actually preserve hip hop, it is most important that we preserve the actual hip hopper themselves. Peace and much love. Let us all give a wonderful round of applause for the teacher, KRS-ONE.
Let's get right to the point. And I'm struggling with my voice because the more I use it, the better it gets. I screamed and yelled yesterday, and obviously my voice is a little raspy. But the more I use it, the better it gets. And I say that because the soul is the same way.
Peace and welcome to the Temple of Hip Hop. I am SIMONE, an apprentice committed to the Temple of Hip Hop. And this presentation is produced to give you some information regarding the Temple of Hip Hop, its function, and its history.
These missions that we do, this mission that we're on, has been happening for the last 30 years. What you're sitting in is a long-standing tradition with hip hop. And this is the purpose for what we call the Temple of Hip Hop. We started in 1996, really before that, but the term Temple of Hip Hop didn't come to us until 1996. Like I said before, for 30 years, hip hop has been meeting like this and discussing itself.
We're not looking to make $1 million. We're looking to have a presence where people know that there's a legitimate force out there that is ran by legitimate people about this culture. If you have questions about the culture and you want legitimate answers, not yo man, you know what I'm saying, but legitimate answers that you can go and print somewhere in a college journal about a culture, you need to come see the Temple of Hip Hop.
The Temple of Hip Hop is a hip hop preservation society which functions as an authentic hip hop ministry. We preach the attainment of peace, love, unity, and safely having fun through the mastery of breaking, MCing, graffiti art, and DJing.
What's up? How y'all doing? Yeah, now look, if y'all ain't hyped yet, you will be hyped before you leave here tonight. Because tonight we're going to establish the authority of hip hop culture.
The mission began with the launch of the Stop the Violence movement in 1989, and then with Human Education Against Lies, HEAL, in 1991. In 1994, KRS-ONE declared, "I am hip-hop," and began to inspire the global hip-hop community to see itself beyond music entertainment. During this time, KRS-ONE would unify the essence of the hip-hop community around the development of hip-hop as a global culture, and how such a culture could be preserved and passed on to future generations. Others at the time had brought up the idea of rappers forming a union capable of providing health care and legal defense for rappers and DJs. But it was KRS-ONE that introduced the idea of hip-hop being an international culture of peace and prosperity for all those practicing hip-hop's cultural elements.
But the theme of unifying hip-hop as a culture, unifying artists, and having them organized in a fashion where they can control their political power, control their economic power, their creative power, etc., etc.
It was KRS-ONE that put the K in hip-hop's culture and actually did the work to unify hip-hop into a global community beyond entertainment. But such ideas would be met with fierce opposition and sabotage. Prominent hip-hop pioneers, journalists, professors, and artists alike refused to accept the idea of hip-hop becoming a legitimate global culture. they argued for its continued existence as a music genre, hip-hop. When KRS-ONE first stated, "I am hip-hop," his critics thought that he was speaking only of himself, that he alone was hip-hop. But what our teacher was saying was that not only did he realize that he was hip-hop itself, but that anyone participating in hip-hop was also hip-hop itself.
But someone else would say, yes, I am hip-hop. Now the two of us are united. I'm hip-hop, this person's hip-hop. Class don't matter. Gender don't matter. Race don't matter. Religion don't matter. Hip-hop is above all of that. You can be whatever you want to be. All we want to know is, can you break? Can you MC? Can you DJ? Can you do rap? Can you beatbox? What is your culture? What is the content of your character?
Through his songs, books, and lectures, over a 30-year period, KRS-ONE taught the hip-hop community about itself and made it cool to be intelligent. This is why he is hip-hop's official teacher.
I want to verify something that you heard. Look in the back of this tag. You see in the back is that your tag?
Yeah.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah, that's what the tag is pointing down to where the party's at.
The tag was pointing with the part.
That was the direction.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, you come this far, this is keep on coming down the step to the valley. Right. Down to the, you're going out to the water.
Right.
That was a trail down to the water. Right. Major Deegan Highway.
Down to the coast.
Yeah, no.
Turn the page.
Matter of fact, my first girlfriend, graduated. This has to pay border.
That's me and Kenny. 72.
You see the trail coming down?
Yeah.
We're doing the inner steps there. All right. Okay.
Taking it back.
Now this park right here used to stay filthy. You see all this right here? Only time the kids, anybody know, anytime, that's it. Matter, this is it. When the park is clean, earth is coming down. I said, you want me to come out there and play? I gotta clean the park up. See, yeah. A whole lot of dirt to coming down here, man. It's not like that, man. Whoa. See, he was there. You couldn't come out, you was hearing madness.
I was hearing it.
You was hearing it. Oh shit! I live on the other side of the building here. Right. And this is the park right here.
We was out our window.
This is the daycare center. That daycare center's still there, man.
Oh.
This is where we're gonna belong to our first party for such a season. But this is the block party.
I needed to verify the tag.
That's it.
Because only God would have positioned my mother like that. Word up. That is crazy. He had no idea what was going on.
Right.
When no one else was thinking about hip-hop as a teachable subject, KRS-ONE was out there lecturing at universities, performing at sold-out concerts, and writing books pertaining to hip-hop years before it became fashionable to do so. In 1994, after declaring "I am hip-hop" for the first time, KRS-ONE held a Meeting of the Minds conference at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in Harlem, New York. Many pioneers were in attendance. This was the first time the question as to how to preserve hip-hop as a new global culture was properly asked.
With question number one being, what in our minds is the most important aspect to preserving the culture of hip-hop?
In 1997, the Temple of Hip Hop held its first hip-hop census, which asked thousands of hip-hoppers their definitions of hip-hop and where hip-hop should be going. In the same year, the Temple of Hip Hop held major public and private hip-hop cultural conferences all across the United States, seeking the proper definition history, and purpose of hip-hop as an actual world culture?
Well, it started from myself. I was the first. Hip-hop to me right now is like it's on the course of a relay. I was the first guy who started off with the baton. You know, I started off like that. And the origin, West Indian background. I was born in the West Indies, from Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica.
Led by KRS-ONE, the Temple of Hip Hop continued to produce many of these kinds of meetings and lectures, ultimately establishing Hip Hop Appreciation Week every third week in May in 1998, and then going on to declare hip hop a legitimate world culture of peace and prosperity May 16, 2001, at the United Nations headquarters in New York. This gathering at the delegates' dining room revealed the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace.
Wherever the elements, culture, and expressions of hip hop and the term hip hop manifests, this Hip Hop Declaration of Peace shall govern its use and interpretation. Hip hop respects the dignity and sanctity of life without discrimination or prejudice. Hip hop culture demands that hip hoppers work to eliminate poverty, speak out against injustices, and to shape a more caring society and a more peaceful world. Hip hop does not participate in any form of hate at any time. Those who are not hip hop are prohibited from explaining or interpreting hip hop to others. Hip hop respects the laws and agreements of its culture, its country, and those it does business with. Hip hop is the name of our collective consciousness. As a conscious way of life, we recognize our influence on society, especially on children, and we forever shall keep the welfare of both in mind.
This groundbreaking document is the only legally established, NGO-recognized agreement in the world regarding the existence of hip-hop as a legitimate global culture of peace and prosperity. It was at this historic gathering of serious scholars, UN delegates, artists, hip-hop pioneers, and journalists that the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace was established by hip-hop for hip-hop, with the ceremonial acknowledgement of the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. As KRS-ONE stated at the signing of the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace, quote, "Now that we exist, there will never not be a time where we shall not exist. Even if hip-hop stops tomorrow, it will always be remembered. Its influences shall remain entrenched in the very fabric of the societies in which it existed. Our existence as a temple for hip-hop brings balance to hip-hop in world history. Knowing that hip-hop is the name of our social group in world history, it becomes obvious then that no one is going to intentionally protect, promote, and preserve hip-hop for the sake of hip-hop. This we are going to have to do for ourselves, and this is what it means to be hip-hop," end quote.
Before we get to the elements, the artistic elements, before we get to the performances, you got to ask yourself, what caused us to do that? Not the rapping, yo. What makes a person want to even do that? Well, what makes you even think that you could touch the turntable and manipulate it in such a way that it's now at the level of a guitar or a violin or a horn? You took an appliance, and because of your perception of the appliance changed, not you.
Membership with the Temple of Hip Hop begins with one securing a copy of the Gospel of Hip Hop for oneself. Entry into our society of attuned hip hoppers begins with the study of the Gospel of Hip Hop on one's own time at one's own pace. Those with a copy of the Gospel of Hip Hop are considered temple members. Everything about our temple, its meaning and purpose, its schedule and its mission is further explained there. contentment, and self-acceptance begins our ministry. The accurate documentation of hip-hop's existence in the world begins our archive. The teaching of an authentically hip-hop curriculum begins our school. And our unity around the overstandings of the gospel of hip-hop begins our society. Welcome to the Temple of Hip-Hop.
So in faith, we say, we know this is already done. We let it be. We are the people. And there it is. There it is. Thank you for